The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer. Reading of the Journal.
In Senate, Thursday, June 12, 2025, the Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The Journal of Wednesday, June 11, 2025, was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Presentation of petition.
Without objection.
Oh, sorry. Without objection, the Journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions. Messages from the Assembly. The Secretary will read.
Senator Krueger moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill Number 174, and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 1163, third reading count in 1960. Senator Gonzalez moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill Number 2581B, and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 3285B, third reading count in 1967. Senator Parker moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules Assembly Bill Number 4873, and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 4091, third reading count in 1970. Senator Claire moves to discharge from the Committee on Aging, Assembly Bill Number 3939A, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 4351A, third reading count in 1972. Senator Claire moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 1988B, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 5742A, third reading count in 1983. Senator Scarcella Spanton moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 2468, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 6277, third reading count in 1988. Senator Weber moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 6097, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 6338, third reading count in 1989. Senator Harcum moves to discharge from the Committee on Local Government, Assembly Bill Number 7837, and substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7201, third reading count in 1999. Senator Rollison moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 7994B, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7364B, third reading count in 2002. Senator Murray moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 8193, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 7667, third reading count in 2002. Senator Harcum moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 8475, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 8247, third reading count in 2016. Senator Adabo moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 7802A, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 8358, third reading count in 2024. Senator Webb moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 7222, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 8393, third reading count in 2026. Senator Rollison moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 6815, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 6243, third reading count in 2031.
So ordered. Messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Gianaris.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
We are going to simultaneously take up the calendar and call an immediate meeting of the Rules Committee in room 332.
There will be an immediate meeting of the Rules Committee in room 332. The Secretary will read.
Substitution of desk. Yep. Senator Holman Siegel moves to discharge from the Committee on Rules, Assembly Bill Number 1944, substituted for the identical Senate Bill 3765, third reading count 495.
So ordered. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 495, Assembly number 1944 by Assembly Member Paulin, enactment of the Public Health Law.
Read the last sec.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day. It shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Krueger, or Stuart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1003, Senate Print 3866B by Senator Henchy, enactment of the Public Buildings Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect 1 year. It shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Krueger, or Stuart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1003, voted in the negative, Senator Martins. Ayes 58, nays 1.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 1076, Senate Print 7366B by Senator Martinez, enactment of the Highway Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Krueger, or Stuart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1224, Senate Print 6956B by Senator C. Ryan, enactment of the Retirement and Social Security Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1419, Senate Print 3394A by Senator Gennard, as enactment of the Civil Practice Law and Rules.
Read the last section.
Section 9, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1956, Senate Print 287 by Senator Rhodes, enactment of the Vehicle and Traffic Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Senator Rhodes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank leadership for allowing this bill the opportunity to come to the floor, and thank my colleagues here in the Senate for their support. Obviously, we've all had the opportunity to attend Eagle Courts of Honor and the chance to recognize our Eagle Scouts and the exceptional people that they are, their dedication, their perseverance, their knowledge, their skills, and most importantly, their service to community. And it's a chance for us also to recognize the importance of scouting as a whole in our community, because it instills in the kids that participate in the program the same values that we would want to see in our own kids: love of God, love of family, love of country, and appreciation that we have a responsibility to something greater than ourselves, to use the gifts and talents that we've been given to try and make a difference in our communities. And that's what Eagle Scouts do every single day. And I am grateful. We always say that, that obviously an Eagle Scout, in fact, they use the terminology marked man, marked person in their ceremonies, and they truly are. When you see the name of an Eagle Scout cross your desk, everybody instantly knows what that means. Somebody who's trustworthy, somebody who's brave, and somebody whom you can rely upon in times of crisis, and rely upon them to do the right thing even when no one is looking. And so now, by honoring them with this distinctive plate, the state has the opportunity to recognize them for the exceptional people that they are. I proudly vote aye, and again, thank everyone for their support.
Senator Rhodes, you will be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1957, Senate Print 601C by Senator Gallivan, enactment of the Highway Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1958, Senate Print 1004A by Senator Brute, enactment of the Criminal Procedure Law.
Read the last section.
Section 14, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1958, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Chan, Griffo, Hellman, Palumbo, Rhodes, Walzek, and White. Ayes 51, nays, also Senator Rollinson. Ayes 50, nays 9.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1959, Senate Print 1047 by Senator Salazar, enactment of the Public Authorities Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1959, voted in the negative, Senators Borrello, Chan, Griffo, Hellman, Lanza, Obarack O'Mara, Ort, Rhodes, Walzek, Weber, and White. Ayes 47, nays 12.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 1960, Assembly number 174 by Assembly Member Carroll, enactment of real property law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, GNRS, Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1960, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borello, Canzone Fitzpatrick, Chan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Ross, and Steck, Tedisco, Wozik, Weber, and White. Also Senator Oberacker. Ayes 39, nays 20.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 1961, Senate Print 1672B by Senator Martinez, enactment of the Education Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect January 1st, 2026.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swift White.
Senator Martinez to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. I stand today in support of this bill. I first would like to thank our leader for bringing this bill to the floor. It's such an important bill, not only for Long Island, but really for our workers across the island and our children. We know education continues to be the building block of New York's middle class, and with that comes publicly supported educational construction projects that should strengthen, not undercut, the middle class workers. Unfortunately, on Long Island, that is not always the case. Some school construction projects have been awarded to contractors that later have been found guilty of wage theft, worker misclassification, failed to secure New York-based insurance and workers' compensation, and they have refused to hire local construction workers. These projects, which are heavily funded by New York taxpayers, with the state subsidizing nearly 80% of school construction costs through building aid. When a construction crew lacks the proper training, it can lead to safe hazards, substandard work, which can expose taxpayers to additional expenses for projects that need to be remediated. PLAs are proven tools that set fair wages, enforce workplace safety standards, and prioritize hiring skilled local workers. Incorporating PLAs into Long Island school constructions will ensure taxpayers' dollars support good-paying jobs, local jobs, and deliver state-of-the-art facilities without the costly disruption caused by unsafe and unscrupulous contractors. Strong labor standards don't just protect workers, they help school districts avoid delays, cost overruns, but also safeguard our precious children and our faculty who attend these schools every single day. And let's remember that PLAs will not necessarily require schools to contract with union shops. It still allows them to choose different firms that best meets their needs, but as long as the project meets the agreed upon stipulation of the agreement. The bill known as the Stop Worker Exploitation in Public Education Act is about standing up for New Yorkers, the workers, safeguarding taxpayers' dollars, and ensuring Long Island schools are built with respect, fairness, and keeping the safety of our children in mind. I encourage my colleagues to join me in supporting Long Island's workers, taxpayers, and our future generations by passing this important legislation. I also want to thank our brothers and sisters in labor who always stand for New York workers, and I really hope that New York continues to be the beacon for all workers with fair wages and great working conditions. I vote aye.
Senator Martinez to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Matera to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Senator Martinez for working so hard on this, and everybody. This was definitely a hurdle, and this is just so important for somebody that has been in the trades and somebody that's been a business agent for 23 years, 43 years with the Plumbers Union. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of corruption. I've seen a lot of contractors exploiting the workers. And just to give a heads up, my father was one of them. My father first was a mechanic, and my father was working at the VA hospital, and he had the union delegates come up to him, and he found out that he wasn't getting paid the proper wage. And my dad went home. He went home to my mom and said, I'm going into the union. He goes, I can't believe my boss, after 6 years, what I've done, worked hard, and to make his business grow, and all he did was he hurt me with wages that he wasn't getting paid. And you know what, he went into the union. But you know, this is just such an important bill because we do work with the district attorney's office, and guess what, it's just a revolving door. There's always loopholes. And we do have good friends that are up in the gallery right now, and I appreciate Josh Slaughter and Vinnie Lou and Mike McGuire. I thank you so much for coming back up here tonight to make sure that you were up here lobbying and, working hard to talk to all of the elected officials to make sure they understood what this was all about. So again, to Senator Martinez and to Assemblywoman Slodges over in the Assembly, hopefully that gets done tomorrow, and I proudly vote aye. Thank you so much.
Senator Matera to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1961, voted in the negative are Senators Helming, O'Mara, Ort, and Wozik, Ayes 55, nays 4.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1962, Senate Print 2485 by Senator Parker, enactment of the Public Service Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1962, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Canzea Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Obaracker, O'Mara, Rhodes, Steck, Walzick, and White. Also, Senator Tedisco, ayes 45, nays 14.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1963, Senate Print 2516A by Senator Gennardez, enactment of the Social Services Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1963, voted in the negative, Senator Obaracker and White. Also, Senator Steck, ayes 56, nays 3.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1964, Senate Print 2536A by Senator Jackson, enactment of the Labor Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1964, voted in the negative, Senators Helming and Walzick, ayes 57, nays 2.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1965, Senate Print 2681B by Senator Cooney, enact to amend the executive law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 120th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins White.
Senator Cooney to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our brave New York State troopers put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe, whether it's protecting our roadways, responding to emergencies, or investigating crimes. And we know it's an unfortunate reality of their work that they are sometimes forced to use deadly force while responding to an emergency. But just because a trooper may be justified in using such force doesn't mean that they aren't experiencing hardship as a result, whether it be a physical or a mental toll. Currently in New York, we have no uniform policy to assist troopers recovering from these critical incidents. And that's exactly what this bill would fix. This would guarantee paid leave for troopers who had to use deadly force. Currently, these officers can be sent back on the roads in just a day or two after witnessing such events, a system that's just unacceptable. Our New York State troopers are dedicated public servants who work diligently to protect our communities, and with this bill, we will be giving them the support that they deserve. I hope that this legislation that we're going to pass here tonight on the floor of the Senate will become a national model for how we address mental health issues and support our law enforcement agencies. I want to thank our Majority Leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, for her leadership in bringing this bill to the floor. I'm always proud to be the partner of the state troopers and an ally here in the legislature. Mr. President, I vote aye.
Senator Cooney to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1965, voted in the negative, Senator Brisbois, ayes 58, nays 1.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1966, Senate Print 3266 by Senator Palumbo, enacted in relation to the Southampton Village Ocean Rescue.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bills passed.
Calendar number 1967, Assembly number 2581B by Assembly Member Gonzalez Rojas, enacted to amend the Public Health Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Sue Cousins White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1967, voted in the negative are Senators Canzea Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Obaracker, Rhodes, Walzick, and White. Ayes 51, nays 8.
The bills passed.
Calendar number 1968, Senate Print 3815B by Senator Rivera, enact to amend the general municipal law.
There is a home rule message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 4, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Sukans, White.
Senator Rivera to explain his vote.
Back on July 5th of 2017, a tragedy occurred. In my district in the Bronx, Miosotis Familia, an NYPD detective, was assassinated in an unprovoked ambush. She was the first female officer killed since, in the line of duty since 9/11 and only the third in the history of the NYPD. And as a single mother, she left behind 3 children, Genesis, Peter, and Delilah. At the time, Genesis was 20 years old, and she became the sole caregiver of her entire family. And unlike a surviving spouse, Genesis and her siblings are only eligible for benefits until the age of 18, or 23 if they remain students. And Genesis had already aged out, and the twins will soon follow. So we knew, based on these facts that were brought to us, that we needed to change the way that the law is currently structured to allow for this situation to occur, because survivors' accidental death benefits, or SADB's eligibility, what this bill would do is extend the eligibility for children of deceased municipal workers who died in the line of duty if there is no surviving spouse. We have been working on this bill for the last couple of years, and I'm incredibly thankful for the leader for allowing it to be brought to the floor. Certainly working along with the folks in the City Council, we got a home rule right on the last day of session, and I know that this is going to be passing in the Assembly, or is going to be passing later tonight or maybe in the next couple of days. But bottom line, Mr. President, is that we will be finally able to change the situation of all of these children, to make sure that Genesis can receive the benefits that she is due so that she can take care of her family. This is the best way that we as a state can pay our tribute to the memory of Officer Familia. I vote in the affirmative.
Senator Rivera to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1969, Senate Print 3879A by Senator Holman Siegel, enact to amend the civil practice law and rules.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Sukans, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1969, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Cancer Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Patera, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Morales, and Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 39, nays 20.
The bills passed.
Calendar number 1970, Assembly number 4873 by Assembly Member Chandler Waterman, enact to amend the Public Authorities Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Sukans, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1970, voted in the negative are Senators Griffo and Walzett. Ayes 57, nays 2.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1971, Senate Print 4263 by Senator Kavanaugh, enact to amend the Environmental Conservation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 5, this action will take effect on the 1st of February.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Sukans, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bills passed.
Calendar number 1972, Assembly number 3939A by Assembly Member Parlin, enact to amend the Elder Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Sukans, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bills passed.
Calendar number 1973, Senate Print 4417 by Senator May, enact to amend the Social Services Law.
Read the last section.
Section 6, this action will take effect on the 1st of April.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Sukans, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1973, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Canzani, Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Obaraco, O'Mara, Orr, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollins, Steck, Tedisco, Walzak, Weber, and White. Ayes 38, nays 21.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1975, Senate Print 4554A by Senator Scarcella Stanton, and that to amend the administrative code of the City of New York.
There is a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1976, Senate Print 4598 by Senator Jackson, and that to amend the retirement and Social Security law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1977, Senate Print 4727 by Senator Jackson, and that to amend the retirement and Social Security law.
There is a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1978, Senate Print 4824A by Senator Jackson, and that to amend the general municipal law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1979, Senate Print 4894 by Senator Jackson, and act to repeal paragraph G of subdivision 4 of section 209 of the Civil Service Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1980, Senate Print 4966 by Senator Bailey, and that to amend the New York City Charter.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to, calendar 1980, voted in negative, Senator Rhodes. Ayes 58, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1981, Senate Print 5056A by Senator Rivera, and that to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1982, Senate Print 5257A by Senator Hinchy, and that to amend the general business law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1982, voted in the negative, Senator Walzak. Ayes 58, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1983, Assembly number 1988B by Assembly Member Paulin, and act to amend the public health law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1984, Senate Print 5883 by Senator Lanza, and act to amend the vehicle and traffic law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1985, Senate Print 5939B by Senator Skoufis, and act to amend the public health law.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 1986, Senate Print 5995B by Senator Skoufis, and act to amend the domestic relations law.
Read the last section.
Section 10, this act shall take effect on the 270th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Senator Skoufis to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for affording me a moment on the bill. This legislation is named in honor of Kira Franchetti, who was only 2 years old when she was murdered by her abusive father during an unsupervised court-sanctioned visit. Kira's mother, who many of us know, Jacqueline, had pleaded with the court multiple times to shield her daughter from her father's suicidal behavior, abuse, uncontrollable anger, and manipulative control. But the judge overseeing her custody case didn't listen and ordered unsupervised visits anyway. Tragically, there are others who share Kira's devastating story. New York's children are routinely court-ordered into homes with dangerous and even murderous guardians. And with that so top of mind, this legislation would require family court to review allegations of domestic violence and child abuse prior to issuing temporary or final orders of custody and visitation. This would include a history of domestic violence, child abuse, police reports, and other known risk factors. Kira's mother, Jacqueline, was robbed of the opportunity to watch her daughter grow, to see her start preschool, to learn to read. She will never watch Kira graduate from high school or find a career she loves or have children of her own. But somehow, through the unthinkable loss of her daughter and with incredible patience and grace, Jacqueline has harnessed her grief to drive this singularly consequential piece of legislation before us today. I'd truly like to thank Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins for bringing this bill to the floor and her support, Assemblymember Andy Hevesy, my team, Stephen Koch, and the many advocates who have worked on this bill over the years, and would especially like to highlight the work of Joan Gerhardt, Jennifer Friedman, and most of all, Jacqueline Franchetti, Kira's mother, who has worked tirelessly to ensure that what happened to Kira does not happen to any other child here in New York State. I proudly vote aye.
Senator Skoufis to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1987, Senate Print 6247A by Senator Skoufis. An act to ratify and confirm the creation of Water District Number 14 of the town of Monroe.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 6 is action to effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1988, Assembly number 2468 by Assemblymember Dinowitz, an act to amend the Public Service Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action take effect on the 1st of April.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1988, voted in the negative are Senators Gallivan, Steck, Walzek, Weber, and White. Ayes 54, nays 5.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 1989, Assembly number 6097 by Assemblymember, Weapon, an act to amend the town law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action took effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1989, voted in the negative, Senators Gallivan, Helming, O'Mara, Rhodes, and White. Ayes 54, nays 5.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1990, Senate Print 6351B by Senator Adabo, an act to amend the general municipal law.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 1991, Senate Print 6421A by Senator Borrello, an act authorizing the city of Batavia to alienate certain parklands.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 5, this action took effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1992, Senate Print 6439 by Senator Fahey, an act in relation to issuing the village
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 3, this action took effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1993, Senate Print 6661 by Senator Griffo, an act to amend the Veteran Services Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this action took effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1994, Senate Print 6929A by Senator Webb, an act to amend the Education Law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this action took effect 1 year after the child become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1995, Senate Print 7028C by Senator Walzek, an act in relation to authorizing the city of Little Falls and the county of Herkimer to finance certain deficits by the issuance of bonds.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 6 is action to take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Relation to calendar 1995, voted in the negative are Senators Bailey and Broussard, ayes 57, nays 2.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1996, Senate Print 7049A by Senator Fernandez, an act authorizing the city of New York to discontinue certain parkland and Ferry Point Park.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 9, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1996, voted in the negative are Senators Brisport, Kruger, and Mayor. Also, Senator Claire, ayes 55, nays 4.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1997, Senate Print 7053 by Senator Webb, an act to amend the county law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1998, Senate Print 7072 by Senator Webb, an act to amend the general municipal law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNR's Kruger, Ort, Swookens White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 1999, Assembly number 7837 by Assemblymember Levenberg, enacted in the Village Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2000, Senate Print 7223 by Senator Passard, an act in relation to authorizing the conveyance of certain property by the City of New York.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2001, Senate Print 7314C by Senator Jackson, an act to amend the retirement and Social Security law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2002, Senate Print 7994B by Senator Barrett, an act to amend the Public Authorities law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2003, Assembly number 8193 by Assemblymember DeStefano, an act in relation to authorizing the assessor of the town of Brookhaven to accept an application for a real property tax exemption.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2003, voted in the negative, Senator O'Mara, ayes 58, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2004, Senate Print 7576A by Senator Ort, an act to amend Chapter 220 of the laws of 1976.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2005, Senate Print 7748 by Senator Jackson, an act to amend the General Municipal Law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2006, Senate Print 7749 by Senator Jackson, an act to amend the General Municipal Law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 56.
bill's
Pardon me,
passed.
59, sorry.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 2007, Senate Print 7756A by Senator May, an act to amend Chapter 198 of the laws of 2021.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 2008, Senate Print 7868A by Senator Martins, an act authorizing the Village of Kings Point, to discontinue certain parklands.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 7, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2008, voted in the negative, Senator Hoyman Siegel, ayes 58, nays 1.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 2009, Senate Print 7958 by Senator Bailey, an act to amend the Workers' Compensation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 2010, Senate Print 8024B by Senator Martinez, an act related to the disability retirement benefits for Deputy Sheriff Richard Stuber.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 2011, Senate Print 8071A by Senator Adabo, an act to amend the Civil Practice Law and Rules.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 1 to 20th date, and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bill's passed.
Calendar number 2012, Senate Print 8087 by Senator Gennardez, an act to amend the Retirement and Social Security Law.
There is a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2012, voted in the negative, Senators Griffo, Helming, Lanza, O'Mara, Ort, Steck, and Walzek. Ayes 52, nays 7.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2013, Senate Print 8121A by Senator Jackson, an act to amend the Retirement and Social Security Law.
There's a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill's passed.
Calendar number 2014, Senate Print 8183 by Senator Martins, an act to amend the Village Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill's passed.
Calendar number 2015, Senate Print 8233 by Senator Sanders, an act to amend the New York City Charter.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill's passed.
Calendar number 2016, Assembly number 8475 by Assembly Member Berger, enactment of the Elder Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2017, Senate Print 8263 by Senator Kanzeri Fitzpatrick, authorizing the Mevasheki Hashem Incorporated to receive retroactive real property tax exempt status.
Read the last section.
Section 3.2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2017, voted in negative, Senator O'Mara. Ayes 58, nays 1.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 2018, Senate Print 8265A by Senator Sutton, enactment of the insurance law.
Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect January 1st, 2027.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Senator Weber to explain his vote.
President, I rise today, I think it is today, I rise in support of this legislation, and I'm proud to be one of the sponsors. Last June, with only a few days left in session, I met with several families in my district office and heard the challenges they faced as parents of children with cochlear implants. For those of you who don't know, these wonderful devices give people with hearing impairments the ability to hear properly. They truly are a miracle. The parents explained that a new cochlear implant comes with 2 devices, each with rechargeable batteries, both covered by insurance. For 6 hours each day, the devices need to be charged. This is manageable for adults, but more difficult for children. When a device malfunctions or needs to be upgraded, the replacements are not covered by insurance. When insurance companies denied the requests made by parents, the denial letters said they were following state guidelines. Thankfully, as legislators, we are in a position to modify the state guidelines to require insurance companies to cover the cost of replacement devices when they malfunction or become obsolete. As you can imagine, these devices are expensive, and some families who can't afford to immediately purchase a backup device were forced to not hear for hours each day while waiting for one of their working devices to recharge. I believe every cochlear recipient should have access to sound at all times, and I'm proud to say that with the passing of this legislation, that goal will be more attainable than ever. Mr. President, I proudly vote aye.
Senator Weber to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 2019, Senate Print 8306A by Senator Ort, enactment Chapter 978 of the laws of 1996.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2020, Senate Print 8313 by Senator Harkin, an act authorizing the Commissioner of General Services to transfer and convey certain unappropriated state land to the ARC, Westchester, New York.
Read the last section.
Section 6, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2021, Senate Print 8341A by Senator Stavisky, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 4, this act shall take effect on the 180th day and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2022, Senate Print 8344 by Senator Gurnardez, an act to amend Chapter 189 of the laws of 2013.
There is a homeroom message at the desk. Read the last section.
Section 6, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2022, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kanzeri Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Helming, Lanza, Martinez, Martins, Matera, Obracker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Scarcella, Spenton, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 39, nays 20.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2023, Senate Print 8349A by Senator Palumbo, an act in relation to directing the Department of Transportation to grant a permanent access and construction easement to the MTA.
Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gionaris Kruger, Ort, Suikans White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2024, Assembly number 78028 by Assemblymember Sage, enactment of the Racing Pari-Mutual Wagering and Breeding Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 90th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2024, voting in the negative are Senators Bridgeport, Kruger, and Martinez, ayes 56, nays 3.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2025, Senate Print 8391 by Senator Gianaris, enactment of the Civil Rights Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White,
Announce the results.
ayes 59.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 2026, Assembly number 7222 by Assemblymember Bashar Harriman, enactment of the Executive Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White,
Announce the results.
ayes 59.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 2027, Senate Print 8400 by Senator Serrano, enact in relation to a feasibility study and report on the potential reestablishment of the Empire State Summer Games.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White,
Announce the results.
ayes 59.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2028, Senate Print 8428 by Senator Gianaris, enactment of the General Business Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect on the 180th day, it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White,
Announce the results.
ayes 59. Oh, excuse me. In relation to calendar 2028, voted in the negative, Senator Walzek, ayes 58, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2029, Senate Print 8428 by Senator Rhodes, enactment of the Highway Law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2029, voted in the negative, Senator Bridgeport, ayes 58, nays 1.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2030, Senate Print 8432 by Senator Holman Siegel, enactment of Limited Liability Company Law.
Lay it aside.
Calendar number 2031, Assembly number 6815 by Assemblymember Bifon, enactment of tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2031, voted in the negative are Senators Kanzea Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Harcum, Helming, Lanza, Martinez, O'Mara, Rhodes, C. Ryan, Scarcella Stanton, Scoofus, and White. Ayes 47, nays 12.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2032, Senate Print 6618A by Senator Robinson, enactment of the tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Swilkens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2032, voted in the negative are Senators Kanzea Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Harcum, Helming, Lanza, Martinez, O'Mara, Rhodes, C. Ryan, Scarcella Stanton, Scoofus, and White. Ayes 47, nays 12.
The bill is passed. Senator Gianaris, that completes the reading of today's supplemental active list of today's active list, excuse me, because it's a new day.
Mr. President, I believe there's a report of the Rules Committee at the desk. Let's take that up.
Secretary Reed.
Senator Stewart Cousins from the Committee on Rules reports the following bills. Senate Print 5426 by Senator Skoufis, enactment of the real property law. Senate Print 8416 by Senator Comrie, enactment of the general business law. Bills report direct to third reading.
Move to accept the report of the Rules Committee.
All those in favor of accepting the rules of the report of the Rules Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The report of the Rules Committee is adopted. Senator Janaris.
Please take up the supplemental calendar.
Secretary will read.
Calendar number 2033, Senate Print 5426 by Senator Skoufis, enactment of the real property law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this action will take effect on the 180th day and shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, or Stewart Cousins White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2033, voted in a negative R, Senators Lanza and Rhodes. Ayes 57, nays 2.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 2034, Assembly number 80, Senate number 8416 by Senator Comrie, enactment to amend the general business law.
Read the last section. Lay it aside. Senator Janaris, that completes the reading of today's supplemental calendar.
Mr. President, let's move on to the controversial calendar, beginning with calendar number 2034.
Secretary will ring the bell. Secretary will read.
Calendar number 2034, Senate Print 8416 by Senator Comrie, enactment of the general business law.
Senator Rhodes, it's 1:52 a.m. Why do you rise?
Because I was falling asleep, Mr. President.
Well, you gotta
But
wake
no,
on up,
I was
brother.
hoping that Senator Comrie might yield to a few questions.
Senator Comrie, do you yield?
I yield.
Last dragon yields.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. Through you, Mr. President, if I can ask, the bill that we have before us was actually introduced on June 9th of 2025. So at least by my count, that would have been on Tuesday. Was there a particular reason after 5 months of session that we waited to introduce this legislation until the Tuesday before the close of session?
Through you, Mr. President, this bill has been worked on for the past 5, almost 7 years. We've been trying to create an opportunity to improve the opportunities for the Attorney General to update the general business law in relation to enacting Affordability and Integrity through Reasonable Fair Business Practices Act. Every state in New York has, every state in the United States has a statute prohibiting unfair, deceptive, and abusive practices, which are known as UDAP. These statutes serve to protect consumers and to protect businesses from promoting fraud or unethical business practices. In New York, UDAP only prohibits deceptive acts, such as claiming a product does a task or it does not perform. Likewise, state statute broadly prohibits unfair practices but restricts consumers' ability to enforce these protections. Administrative barriers and narrow definitions of unfair practices make it difficult for New Yorkers to take action against corrupt businesses, reducing the effectiveness of UDAP statutes. This bill is going to define acts or practices as unfair where it causes or is likely to cause substantial injury, which is not reasonably avoidable and is not outweighed by the countervailing benefits to the consumer or to competition. We have been trying, as I said in the beginning, for 7 years to update the UDAP bill. There's over 32 states that have updated it. This bill has not been updated since 1980. And the New York must reform its outdated and weak consumer protection laws. We have many folks that are here in this state that are new homeowners, new auto buyers, working to try to improve their business, and they're being ripped off by businesses. This is a bill that we've been working hard with the business community, with the Attorney General's office, working with the Assembly and the Governor's office, and we finally have two different houses that have agreed on the bill, and hopefully the governor's office will help move this bill forward.
Sponsor, continue to yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
The sponsor yields.
Through you, Mr. President, you would agree, though, Senator Comrie, would you not, that this is a fairly robust and comprehensive piece of legislation that, that we were merely given on this side of the aisle hours to be able to look at, and merely really less than an hour of notice that it would be coming to the floor today. It did not go through the normal committee process, was not the subject of any hearings, was not the subject, obviously, of any questioning in any committee, other than its brief stop over at the Rules Committee. Sometime around 1:30 in the morning on the day after what is supposed to be the final day of session. Don't you think that this is a little bit rushed for such a comprehensive bill?
President, I would take umbrage with the fact that this bill is being labeled as comprehensive. This bill is actually quite simple, and this bill has been brought down to its most essential elements. This bill was introduced in a larger version in March 13th by the Attorney General's office and filed accordingly. This bill has been focused and redetailed to focus on just the main things that are going to create harm to consumers. In most cases, it's just going to deal with a substantial injury or a substantial harm, substantial injury, unfair business practice, and a deceptive business practice or an abusive business practice, and that's it. If you would like, I would give you the definitions of those three, but I think we'll do that down the line. Thank you.
Senator Comrie, will the senator continue to yield?
Will the
Yes.
sponsor yield? The
Yes.
sponsor yields.
The federal government has its own Frank Dodd UDAP statute and also has FTC statutes that provide consumer protections similar to this. Why did you feel it was necessary at this particular juncture for a bill that you've been working on for the last 7 years to introduce these state protections today?
Frankly, we don't believe that the federal government will continue to help enforce these statutes, and recent reports have indicated that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will not pursue any current or future cases, and most Republicans in Congress have introduced legislation to eliminate the agency altogether. So we don't feel that on the federal level there will be protection for consumers, so that's why we were even more focused on trying to come to an agreement this year.
Comrie. But this is a bill that you've been working on for the last
Senator
7
Rose, are
years.
you asking the
Will
sponsor
the
to yield?
sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yield.
But this is a bill that you've been working on for the past 7 years, correct? And will the sponsor continue to
Will
yield?
the sponsor
Yes.
yield? The sponsor yields.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of the bill?
The purpose of the bill is to protect consumers from practices that are winding up charging usury fees to them to purchase equipment, to purchase cars, for home loan practices. We also are focusing now on dealing with fewer junk fees for people that get caught in other business scams. This is something that is focused on making sure that anyone that has a clear injury from the deceptive practice, not an imagined injury or a assumed injury, but something that can be clearly delineated, can be protected, and the Attorney General can come in and help them recoup their money. We have many, this is the state of new immigrants. This is the state of many people that are trying to get a leg up in life. They're starting businesses, they're purchasing homes, and they're frankly getting ripped off. And whenever those incidents are happening, they have no recourse or no one to turn to. So this would give the Attorney General the power to be able to help these constituents, these consumers, these folks that are trying to lift themselves up but are getting pushed back because they have limited knowledge and they're doing things that they've never done before with people that are ripping them off.
And will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. Doesn't the Attorney General already have the ability to prosecute what the Attorney General believes to be deceptive business practices under existing state law?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do have limited power, but this is expanding it to things that are clearly deceptive and unfair.
And if the sponsor will continue to yield.
Sponsor
Yes.
yields. Sponsor yields.
In what ways is this legislation expanding the powers of the Attorney General?
So it's to you, Mr. President, it's adding unfair acts, which is defined as an act or practice is unfair when it causes or likely to cause substantial injury, which is not reasonably avoidable and is not outweighed by the countervailing benefits to the consumer or competition. Then an abusive act, which is defined as an act or practice as abusive when it materially interferes with the ability of a person to understand a term or condition of a product or service, or it takes unreasonable advantage of the lack of understanding on the part of the person of the material risk, cost, or conditions of a product or service, or B, the inability of a person to protect such person's interests in selecting or using a product or service.
Senator Comrie, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield.
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
I know the definitions that are contained in the statute. I can certainly read them, but they all sound to be somewhat similar and would be encompassed under the definition of a deceptive business practice. Would you be able, as the sponsor, to give me a concrete example of what you believe to be a deceptive practice versus an unfair practice versus an abusive practice?
Yeah, okay. You're a new homeowner and you're trying to buy furniture. You go to a store and they tell you that the furniture is going to cost you on a rental as opposed to a purchase so you can save money. You turn out to find out that the rental fee is costing you more than you would have actually purchased the item in if you were able to purchase it whole. That's a deceptive business practice. An unfair practice is if you're going to purchase a home like many new homeowners do in New York State, and they find out that they're paying a rate that's 3 times over the cost because there's a balloon mortgage on there that they weren't told about, or there was a codicil put in there that they weren't aware of, and they weren't given an opportunity to have a real analysis done because they were told they had to sign the papers that day or they would lose the mortgage. What was the third one? Abusive. That's wide open for many people, but most abusive practices is when people are trying to purchase a product or a service and they're being pushed to something that they were either not able to afford or not able to continue to pay for, but they were told on the spot by the business that they would have to purchase this today. So that they're looking to, this law is not looking to do anything but clearly defend people that were clearly abused in a specific way and that caused harm or injury to them. And also created a clear financial hardship because it's costing them a lot more than they would, most New Yorkers would pay those informed New Yorkers that understand how to and have practiced in purchasing things. We are trying to protect our new Yorkers. We're trying to protect people that are trying to build a life, develop an opportunity, buy their first car. Even student loans, we're finding people are getting ripped off on. As I said earlier, the home purchase market, especially in my district where I have one of the highest foreclosure rates because people have gotten into usury loans. They have purchased homes that they found out they had no way to continue to pay for or manage. We're trying to protect those people. We are New Yorkers. We're legislators. We try to protect people that come here to try to build a better life, and this bill would help give the Attorney General that opportunity.
Madam President, will the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Senator Comrie yields.
I'm still having some difficulty understanding, though, Senator Comrie, through you, Madam President, of course, because the examples that you give, person buying furniture, person buying a home, not realizing or not being told that there was a balloon payment at the end, an individual being charged 3 times the rate that they thought they were going to be charged because they weren't informed of the rates. Wouldn't those all qualify as deceptive practices? Because they all involve leading someone to believe something that isn't true.
I'm not, do you, Madam President? I think that's subject to interpretation, and what the Attorney General is trying to do, as they've done in 47 other states and have done on a federal level, is to create the same standard. And so the language that's written here in this bill is compared to and equal to what has been done in 47 other states.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. Will the sponsor continue to yield?
You continue to yield? Sponsor yields.
So now, the statute itself, the proposed statute, defines an unfair practice as when it causes or is likely to cause substantial injury not reasonably avoidable and is not outweighed by countervailing benefits to consumers or to competition. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, do you, Madam President, correct?
And will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
You continue to yield? Sponsor yields.
And what was the basis for that definition?
Through you, Madam President, this is the same definition that's used in 47 other states and also currently used by the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's the exact same definition, and it was developed some time ago, and it has been effective across the country in 47 other states.
And what is the definition of substantially?
Senator Rhodes, are you
Will the
asking?
sponsor continue to yield?
You continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
And what is the definition of substantial injury?
It's defined in the Federal Trade Commission Act, and am I saying? Yeah, okay, thank you. It's the same definition in the Federal Trade Commission Act, Senator Rhodes. So they tried to use the same language and actually the same words, and so that it could be uniform with everything else that's happening across the country.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
The federal statute, though, does provide some standards for determining what is actually unfair or deceptive, does it not?
To you, Madam President, yes, and this bill it matches that exactly.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
You continue to yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
And what standards does the statute provide for making that determination?
Standards, I'm sorry, do you, Madam, let me 1 minute, I need to confer on that. Standards are derived from standard case law, which the FTC has used in their many examples, but it's through standard case law by the Federal Trade Commission and by the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Continue to yield?
I do.
The sponsor yields.
What guidance is provided to the ultimate decision maker in this case as to what they're supposed to look at? And the reason for the question is that The FDIC has actually issued standards used to assess whether an act or practice is unfair or deceptive, looking at the interplay between the FTC Act and other consumer protection statutes, looking at examination procedures for determining compliance with the FTC Act standards, including risk assessment procedures that should be followed to determine if transaction testing is warranted, best practices for documenting a case, corrective actions that should be considered for violations, as well as resources that can be used. In your statute, what tools are provided to the ultimate decision maker in this case as to how they're supposed to evaluate cases?
The ultimate decision makers in this case will be the Attorney General that decides to bring the case after they talk to the consumer and find out what happened to them and why they feel aggrieved. But actually, the final decision maker will be the courts. And the courts will act accordingly as they have been doing in 47 other states regarding these matters. But the preliminary decision will be assessed by the Attorney General's office whether or not to bring a case. We're focused on substantial cases and things that they can document so that they're not bringing frivolous lawsuits. The Attorney General is not interested in doing anything but trying to protect people that have been substantially aggrieved or abused.
And will the sponsor continue to yield?
Yes.
Continue to yield. Sponsor yields.
Thank you. Is a complaint or must an action by the Attorney General stem from an actual consumer complaint, or under your statute, does the Attorney General have the ability to initiate on her own volition an investigation or action against a particular individual or company?
The Attorney General can do it on the Attorney General's own volition, but there has to be an actual injury. It can't be surmised or projected. There has to be actual injury that they can point to and describe and demonstrate. I'm sorry, to you, Madam President.
That's fine, but can we keep the chatter somewhat lower?
And will the sponsor continue to yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
Your proposed statute indicates that the Attorney General may bring such an action or proceeding against any person conducting any business, trade, or commerce, or furnishing a service in this state, whether or not the person is without the state or is within the state. The Attorney General may also bring such an action or proceeding against any person within the state conducting any business, trade, commerce, or furnishing a service, whether or not the business, trade, commerce, or service is conducted or furnished without the state. Would this language allow the Attorney General to prosecute businesses and individuals that have no relation to the state of New York?
Any business that is damaging a New York State resident would be subject to the Attorney General going after them to eliminate that business practice, because if they're going after one constituent, they're going after dozens. So if there's a deceptive business that is operating anywhere that is harming New York State consumers, this gives the opportunity for the Attorney General to file against them.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Do you yield?
I yield.
The sponsor yields.
And so in a circumstance where you have a business online, I don't want to give a particular name, but we can imagine a company that exists in a state other than the state of New York. You have a consumer that goes upon that business's website and orders a product or a service. How would the Attorney General get jurisdiction over a company in another state?
Madam President, as long as that company has a nexus or a conduit through New York State and is doing business in New York State, they are subject to the Attorney General if they're doing deceptive or unfair business practices.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Do you continue to yield?
Yes,
Sponsor
I do.
yields.
So in a case of an out-of-state company which merely maintains a website that's accessed by a New York resident, would that constitute a sufficient nexus, in your opinion, for the Attorney General to obtain jurisdiction?
There needs to be a physical transaction or some type of transaction that happens that can be documented and traced. For that, and that whatever that transaction was, if it was deceptive or unfair or abusive, then the constituent can prove that and show that to the Attorney General, then the Attorney General can make the case. But again, these would be resolved at the court level, or a business would have a certain amount of time to show that they are, whatever they've done, they do not believe is deceptive.
And will the sponsor continue to yield?
Do you continue to yield?
Yes, I do.
Sponsor yields.
Well, you've indicated already that whether or not the Attorney General is going to pursue an action is in the sole discretion of the Attorney General. There is no showing that has to be made preliminarily to any court or to any grand jury before the Attorney General can institute any action. Is that correct?
Madam President, no, that's not correct. There has to be something substantial. There has to be a product or a service or a thing that was rendered to the consumer, to the constituent, that shows injury that they have. It's either, you know, like I said, a home, a car, or now we're dealing with, you're talking internet online purchasing. If they purchase something, they would have that object. If they have a home, clearly they would have the mortgage papers. If they purchased a car, clearly they would have those papers. But if we're focusing on online, whatever that product they purchased online, they would have to show to the Attorney General. The Attorney General would have to make a decision as to whether or not to file a case. But they just can't wake up and say, you know, I want to file a case. They have to show something to prove that there was an instrument or product that was sold to them that they feel has been deceptive.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Continue to yield.
Yes, I yield.
Sponsor yields.
Section 349 of your legislation Article 2C B1 states that whenever the Attorney General shall believe from the evidence satisfactory to the Attorney General that any person, including but not limited to an individual, firm, corporation, company, partnership, or association, or agent or employee thereof, has engaged or is about to engage in any of the acts or practices stated to be unfair, deceptive, or abusive, the Attorney General may bring an action or proceeding in the name and on behalf of the people of the state of New York. I know you've indicated that there has to be some sort of nexus and some sort of injury or harm, but my question was, who has to make that preliminary determination? Does there have to be any showing to a court? Does there have to be, in the case of a criminal action that's being brought, does there have to be any kind of presentation to a grand jury in the obtaining of an indictment? Or is this simply the Attorney General has the opportunity by herself, based on criteria that she determines by herself, to pursue an action against anyone, any company she wants to, anywhere in the country?
This is current law, Senator Rhodes. We're not changing the current law and the ability of the Attorney General, whoever that may be, to pursue a case. It's already the current law that the Attorney General has to follow certain guidelines. These are civil cases, not criminal cases. Also, you can take the criminality off the table. These are consumer cases and cases where people have been ripped off by goods, products, and services. So if there's already a standard practice for the Attorney General to present these cases, and he or she would still have to follow. That's already well-documented standard. I keep forgetting to say
Will
through you.
will the sponsor continue to yield?
I do?
Just reminding you, Senator Rhodes, you have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. Where would the case be venued?
Where would the case be vetted? I'm sorry.
Where
I'm
would the
sorry,
case
do
be
you ma-
venued?
I'm sorry, one,
In other words, let's say you have a resident from the state of Florida, and she's bringing a case against an individual based upon a transaction that happened online.
through you, Madam President, it would be based on the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure as it stands now.
Well, will the sponsor continue to yield?
I
Do
do.
you continue to yield? The sponsor yields.
Well, does the Attorney General have the capacity to be, does the State Attorney General have the capacity to be able to bring an action in federal court?
Oh. These are state court cases. I'm sorry, to you, Madam President, these are state court cases. This is not a federal case, to the best of my understanding. There's nothing in here that's talking about federal level.
Will the sponsor continue to yield?
You
I do.
continue to yield?
I-
Sponsor yields.
If you have an out-of-state resident in Florida, how would you venue the case in New York?
Out-of-state resident, through you, Madam President, the out-of-state resident in Florida is not who we're protecting in New York. There has to be a New York State resident. So I'm not understanding your question. Are you saying the out-of-state resident is the business that is doing the deceptive practice, or are you saying the out-of-state resident is the aggrieved party?
I'll ask another question if the sponsor will yield.
This is your last minute, Senator
Yeah,
Rhodes.
it'll be the last question, and then I'll
Good.
speak briefly on the bill.
I'll yield.
Senator Comrie, did you yield? Okay. Is it your understanding that this statute can only be brought, an action by the Attorney General under this proposed statute can only be brought against a New York resident or business?
No, I didn't say that. I said that any business that has a presence in New York or has a stature in New York or has a conduit in New York that's anywhere in the world that transmits a business product through New York can be subject to this if they've used deceptive practices to do it. This would cover any New York State resident and the residents only.
That is the end of your time.
May I speak briefly on the bill?
No, I think you used your full 30 minutes, and there are a number of people.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Palumbo, why do you rise? Oh, sorry, Senator Martins, why do you rise?
Thank you, Madam President. If the sponsor would yield for a few questions.
The
Anytime,
sponsor
Senator
yield?
Martin.
Sponsor
Yes,
yields.
Yes.
First, Madam President, through you, I want to thank the sponsor for this piece of legislation. I know, Senator Comrie, that you are coming at this from a good place. I just think we may have a difference in opinion on how to get there, and I hope I can ask you some questions and maybe clarify some of those questions that I may have. So through you, Madam President, if the sponsor would yield.
The sponsor yield?
Madam President, I'll be honored to hear Senator Martin's point of view.
Senator yields.
Thank you. We're dealing with concepts of abusive practices, unfair practices, deceptive acts. There's a concern I have, Senator, that although there are definitions assigned to these terms, the definitions themselves are open to interpretation, and that reasonable people can differ in how they interpret something to be either abusive, unfair, or deceptive. Would you agree?
Oh, most definitely. We're in a world that everybody has a different opinion that you talk to. I'm sorry, to you, Madam President, that you can talk to 20 people about something and you'll get 20 different opinions.
Through you, Madam President, if the sponsor would
You
continue to yield.
continue to yield?
I do.
The sponsor yields.
And I need to ask if the drafting of the legislation, was it done here in the Senate collaboratively. I know that Assemblyman Lasher was also the sponsor in the Assembly, and obviously I know Micah for some time. Was that drafted here in the legislature? Was it drafted in the Attorney General's office, or was it done collaboratively?
Madam President, it was done collaboratively. If you want the long answer, no, you don't want the long answer. All right. But it was done collaboratively. I have to give Assemblyman Micah credit because, as I said, we've been trying to do this for 7 years. But we did. The Attorney General had public meetings, private meetings. Assemblyman Lasher and myself have had many meetings with businesses to hear their point of view. We talked to the staffs, both staff, the Assembly staff and the Senate staff, and the Governor's office. And I want to take a moment to thank all of them for grinding through this to try to build down to something that would be acceptable, that we could finally get the Business Council and the New York City Partnership and the other relevant groups that had all been panicking because of what you said about the interpretation and the possibility of interpretation, to drill this down to what is done in 47 other states, what is already being done by the FTC and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because we don't want frivolous lawsuits. We don't want people to be focused on trip and falls. We don't want to panic small businesses or even large businesses with a ton of lawsuits. This is going to be up to the Attorney General to assess and determine whether or not a practice was deceptive or unfair or abusive.
Thank you, Senator. Madam President, through you, if this sponsor will continue to yield.
Do you continue to yield, Senator Comrie?
I do. Yes.
Senator yields.
Point out, I'm sorry, Senator Martin, that this is a departmental bill also, which also indicates that we've been working on this as a team. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you for that. If the sponsor would continue to yield.
You continue to yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
Specifically, the portion here that allows the Attorney General unilaterally to make the decision. Typically, in these statutes, you see some standard, within a reasonable opinion or within a certain range of reasonableness or after certain consultation. Are we to read this statute to include a level of good faith and reasonableness on behalf of the Attorney General? Although it's not written in the statute, are we to expect that that's included in this as well?
The Attorney General already has unilateral power to bring any action against anyone. We're not changing that definition or changing it as it has been defined in 47 other states as well, Madam President. So through you, we're not changing the ability of the Attorney General. We're not changing or the unilateral opportunity that the Attorney General has was already in statute prior to this bill. This bill only highlights and continues a practice that she already has power over.
Madam President, through you, if the sponsor would continue to
Do you
yield.
continue to yield?
Yes,
Sponsor
I do.
yield.
Although I understand that there may be similar statutes in other jurisdictions and there may be similar abilities in other jurisdictions for people to enforce those statutes, in New York State, this statute would change the definition of abusive practices, unfair practices, and deceptive acts in a way that we haven't had in law before. And so the ability of a person to interpret these things, and we've already discussed that reasonable people can have different opinions, we're allowing a person to make those determinations. And although it's happened somewhere else, here in New York it hasn't, because this is a new law. Is there a concern, and should we all expect that the Attorney General, although it's not in the statute, has to act reasonably, has to act in good faith, and has to have a basis to move forward before bringing an action against anyone under this statute?
One second. Madam President, the Attorney General already has the ability to act in this way. The courts will be making the final decisions, not the Attorney General. But the Attorney General is only going to act when there's a harm that can be defined, that can be delineated, that can be demonstrated before they take it to the courts. But the courts will have the final decision on what happens with these cases.
Thank you. Madam President, through you, if the sponsor would continue to
Do you
yield.
continue to yield? The sponsor
do.
yields.
The statute also refers to and grants the ability for the Attorney General to anticipate. Specifically in the statute, there's a language that allows the Attorney General not only to respond to things that are currently happening, but to anticipate in some way, and in anticipating, bringing an action to stop something from happening that hasn't even happened yet. Does that raise any concerns for you in terms of due process, that the Attorney General can actually bring an action prior to something actually having been done because she believes she should do so?
Madam President, my understanding is that the Attorney General already has the power to do these preliminary injunctions, to file a case, and that's already within their power as the Attorney General.
Through you, Madam President, if the sponsor would continue to yield.
Do you continue to yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
So it's my understanding that a preliminary injunction allows the Attorney General to bring a proceeding or a request that the court enjoin somebody from doing something that they're actually doing preliminarily before she has an opportunity to prove it in a full case. So the injunction is brought preliminarily because they did something and she wants to stop them from doing it. In this case, as I'm looking at the language, it says if the Attorney General anticipates that something may be done in the future, not that they have already done it, but she's anticipating some future either abuse, unfair practice, or deceptive act, and in anticipating that, this statute would allow the Attorney General to take action either by bringing a lawsuit or, and I'll get to this in a second, under Section 6312 of the Executive Law, which is extraordinary. Is that portion of this statute that gives the Attorney General that authority to anticipate something, is that a concern?
Do you, Madam President? No, it's not a concern because the Attorney General would only take up cases that they could prove, cases that they know they could win. They would not want to waste time taking frivolous cases to the court to decide.
Sponsor would continue to yield.
Do you continue to yield?
I yield.
Sponsor yields.
I appreciate that, but I understand the Attorney General's office to be amongst the most powerful attorneys general that we have in the entire United States. That's the Attorney General here in New York State. And the ability to bring actions against individuals for something that's anticipated or to bring action either by subpoena or otherwise is and places an incredible burden on whoever is the target of that investigation or of that action. And so before they do that, I believe due process is important. How do we safeguard individuals who may be falsely accused and give them the opportunity to protect themselves in the event that it turns out that they did not, in fact, engage in abusive practices, unfair practices, or deceptive acts and practices if the Attorney General just happens to be wrong, although she may have acted in good faith? How do we protect and ensure that there's due process in this statute?
To you, Madam President, let me just make sure I heard that. Madam President, we're not changing the powers of the Attorney General. We are just delineating the actual we're just delineating unfair, deceptive, or abusive. The Attorney General may bring an action or proceeding in the name and on behalf of the people to enjoin such lawful acts or practices and to obtain restitution. There is a proceeding. The preliminary relief can be granted under Article 63 of the Civil Practice Law and Rules already, which gives the person time to prove if the Attorney General made a mistake to bring relief to the situation.
Thank you. Madam President, through you, if the sponsor would yield for just a few more questions.
Continue to yield?
I do.
Sponsor yield.
You know, not the current Attorney General. I just want to speak to the possibility, perhaps in the future, that we may have an Attorney General here in the state of New York that may be political and may take actions that are politically driven and that may direct certain actions towards different groups based on other than what we would all agree to be proper. And I know we can disagree because reasonable people can disagree on what's abusive or what's deceptive or what is unfair, but do you have concerns that if we allow for what are generally, I think, although if we're acting in good faith, we should all reach more or less the same grounds, but if people do not act in good faith, how do we ensure that there are going to be protections for groups in New York State who may not realize they're acting that way, but are perceived to act that way? How do we protect them?
Again, through you, Madam President, it's not the Attorney General that decides what happens or what the final verdict is. It's the courts that decide. I don't think any Attorney General worth their weight would want to bring frivolous cases and be known as being a failure in these areas. I don't think that any Attorney General worth their weight would want to be known as an office or an agency or an entity that people could not depend on to bring cases in a proper and delineated manner. I don't believe that. I hear what you're saying, that attorney generals may want to try to act politically, but I also know that they want to win a case if they bring it. So that they're not going to take a case that they don't feel comfortable about bringing it to bear. But also, this act gives businesses opportunity to get relief before they go to court. So if a business feels that it is unfairly being targeted or that their business practice is fair and just, they have an opportunity to demonstrate that to the Attorney General.
Through you, Madam President, if the sponsor would continue to yield.
I do.
Sponsor yield.
And therein lies the rub. They would be able to prove it to the Attorney General even before it goes to court, even before it gets before a judge. The Attorney General gets to decide whether or not the proofs are sufficient, whether or not the person has complied, whether or not any of these things have happened. Again, it puts people in the crosshairs in a way that is sometimes very punitive, and we have to be cognizant of that, and I know you are, Senator. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions through you, Madam President, if you'll continue to yield.
I do.
Sponsor yield.
If an Attorney General believes that given the statutes that we have on the books here in New York that have to do with things like reproductive rights, if there are hospitals in New York State that because of religious convictions and foundations of the hospital choose not to provide such services, would the Attorney General be able to consider that to be abusive in order to bring an action or proceeding against an institution, because I think we all understand this is not just for businesses, it's also for not-for-profits and individuals. It's a much broader scope than just what was there before, which was consumer-oriented. Would the Attorney General be able to do that?
Madam President, no. This is not dealing with policies or ideas or ideology. This is dealing with substantial harm, demonstrated criminality, demonstrated usury, and that can be proven by an individual showing a product or a service, this has nothing to do with hospital practices.
Through you, Madam President, if the sponsor would continue to yield.
You continue to yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
Is it, Senators, your sense that this would not apply to not-for-profits, but only to commercial and consumer?
I'm sorry, through you, Madam President, I didn't say that. I specifically said hospitals, and you talked about a hospital's maternal policies or OB/GYN policies. I was focused on that. If a nonprofit is acting in a criminal way, just as it was in the news today that a nonprofit, unfortunately, in my district, the director was arrested for illegal activities and fraud. That nonprofit still would be subject to, review by the Attorney General's office.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Senator. Madam President, on the bill.
Senator Martin's on the bill.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. As I mentioned, I believe, and I think it's pretty clear that the Attorney General of the state of New York is perhaps the most powerful Attorney General in the country, probably second to the U.S. Attorney General, he or herself, and the resources that they have and the ability they have to marshal those resources in certain directions, I think it's pretty clear. We've seen time and again the ability of attorneys generals to take on certain responsibilities. And they've done, going back through history, they've done quite a bit through the Attorney General's office, each in their own way, whether it's fighting Medicaid fraud, whether it's fighting organized crime. There are all kinds of things that have been taken up over the years, but there's always been a clear, distinct definition of what that looked like and who the target was and what the standards were that we were applying. And so when we look at language like abusive practices, unfair practices, and deceptive acts and practices, it's a concern, and it should be a concern to everybody that we're talking about things that aren't readily defined. They're very subjective, and people can differ in their views of it. But when the power of the state is focused on an organization or an individual or a not-for-profit because they're believed to have acted in a certain way, it's almost as if that person or that group now has to not only protect themselves, but actually prove the negative, that they did not act that way. And frankly, that's unfair. We want to talk about fairness and unfair, and we talk about due process here. The idea that someone has to then be placed in a position of proving that negative. No, I wasn't abusive. No, I wasn't deceptive. No, I did not act unfairly, to the satisfaction of someone who's bringing that action with the weight of the state behind them is significant. The costs associated with it, defending themselves, hiring attorneys, and perhaps not making the case. I did reference earlier in our exchange New York Executive Law, Section 6312. It's part of the executive law. It's not just that they're going to go to court right away. 63 of the executive law grants the Attorney General some significant authority when it comes to actually proactively moving forward. They can move on 5 days' notice. 5 days' notice. That's extraordinary. The statute specifically allows that. This isn't an after, it's there. So not only do we have language that is vague and subject to interpretation, we have language here that allows the Attorney General to anticipate, whatever that means, So let's understand, they can anticipate, even though nothing's actually been done, no act has taken place, but they believe it may be coming, and so they may actually begin the process of holding somebody accountable and forcing them into a position of, again, having to prove that negative. And before they actually appear before a judge, under Section 63 of the executive law, they can actually have someone have to defend themselves and begin that process where the recourse for the other side, frankly, is to have to deal with the person who brought the action to begin with, or go through the extraordinary lengths of seeking relief in courts from the Attorney General herself. So I'm concerned, Madam President, about the bill. I want to commend the sponsor because I understand where he's coming from with regard to his efforts here, and the Assembly sponsor as well. I understand that they're coming at this from a good place, but I have serious reservations and concerns when it comes to vague language, serious consequences, and the kind of impact that hit people and have the ability to destroy people's lives, have the ability to destroy ongoing businesses where perhaps this bill may actually need a little more work. So with that, again, I want to thank the sponsor, and Madam President, I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Martins. Senator Helming, why do you rise?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to go on the bill, please.
Senator Helming on the bill.
Thank you. Senator Comrie, I want to say thank you to you for answering a tremendous number of questions on this bill at almost 3 a.m. I appreciate it. Yeah. During the debate, I heard that 40 other states have similar legislation. And as I was hearing that over and over again, the one thing that kept popping into my head is that 47 other states don't have the distinction of being the state with the most regulations in the entire nation. And because of that, we also have the distinction in New York State as having one of the worst business climates. Our businesses don't need to be burdened with any other frivolous regulations. I serve as the ranking member of the Senate Insurance Committee, and in that capacity, I've had the opportunity to participate in a number of industry events and also serve on a number of insurance panels. The message I hear from agents, from carriers, and from small business owners from across the state is consistent. It's tough, and it's getting tougher to do business here in the state. One insurance agent, he's also a small business owner who's been in the industry for 26 years, told me he has never seen the industry so fraught with peril. This summer, I met with representatives from the Syracuse, the Rochester, the Buffalo areas from Big I, and their message was the same. They shared with me, the calls they're getting from consumers about premiums that have doubled over the past 5 years. And now I've been told that this bill will add even more burden to companies who are still willing to write insurance in New York State. And the reason why I say still willing to write in New York State is because as a state, we've already lost insurance companies. They're withdrawing from our state. I think that this bill will make a perilous situation even worse as carriers decide to stop doing business here to avoid the absolutely unnecessary overreach that this bill would give to the Attorney General or the frivolous lawsuits that will result from this bill. And their departure is only going to drive up the cost of premiums. In fact, I think it's going to have impact on the cost of all goods and services. I understand where we're trying to get to with consumer protections, but I really believe that if we want to be fair to consumers and fair to our small business owners, fair to all New Yorkers, what we need to do is reset. We need to reduce the costly mandates. We need to enact real tax relief for working families and for seniors. We need to secure safer streets for all New Yorkers. We need to expand opportunities for local businesses to grow their jobs, and we really need to turn New York State around. I don't think that this bill accomplishes that, and I vote no on the bill.
Senator Helming. Senator Palumbo, why do you rise?
Thank you, Madam President. I wonder if the sponsor would yield for a few questions, and it will be a few. I have really one sentence I just wanted to ask a few questions on.
Senator Comrie, do you yield?
I'm honored to yield to Senator Palumbo.
Thank
Senator
you, Senator
yields.
Comrie. Good morning. So, of course, Section 349 of the General Business Law already exists. Deceptive practices are unlawful already in New York State. So I get the definition of deceptive. It's already been defined. It's defined in federal law. And abusive, quite honestly, in my opinion, is almost the same. I think for the purposes of my questioning, I'm not going to ask any questions really about that, because obviously if someone is lacking understanding and you're abusive, you're taking advantage of maybe their lack of knowledge, I would suggest that that's deceptive as well. So I'm looking at the new subsection 1 that says about unfairness. An act or practice is unfair when it causes or is likely to cause substantial injury, which is not reasonably avoidable and is not outweighed by countervailing benefits to consumers or to competition. So if we could just break that down a little bit, because I think for the purposes of legislative intent, people need to know what they're doing wrong in the event that this becomes law. So I guess my first question is, if it's unfair, a practice is unfair when it causes or is likely to cause substantial injury. Obviously, if it causes injury, that's self-explanatory. But if it's something is likely to cause substantial injury, can you give me an example of what that is?
1 minute, Madam President. To you, Madam President, deed theft is one of the main issues that brings up unfair injury. Also, in the home mortgage and in the used car and the car buying, there's a lot of issues where people find that they are been abused and unfairly treated, and those are the primary issues that would. I want to just take a minute to say.
Quiet back there.
I want to just take a minute to say that I agree with Senator Helming on most of what she said, other than voting no for the bill. We do have a problem in New York State with how we take care of our businesses. And a lot of this is because we're not giving our businesses an opportunity to learn. We're not giving them and informing them of new laws and new practices. We're not sitting down and listening to them about their insurance problems, which is something that I've been railing about within my conference, because insurance is a ridiculous issue in New York State. New York State has to pay higher insurance rates than everybody else. And I've been very upset with the Department of Financial Services that they don't come before this body during budget hearings and an individual opportunity for us to question them. They hide with 3 other agencies, and you don't get a chance to ask them any real questions. So I have some real problems with that. I have some real problems with how we treat businesses, but this is for people that are being deceptive. This is for people that are ripping people off. This is for people that are harming people's opportunity to be able to be successful, and that's what we're trying to protect. So thank you for bringing that up. I think there's a lot that we need to do as a state to make sure that we maintain our business community. Thank you.
Would the sponsor continue to yield?
Do you continue to yield?
I'm not going. Yes, I continue to yield.
Thank you, Senator. And in that vein, to help our businesses, that's kind of why I'm asking these questions, because the way I read, that language is obviously inserted for a reason. If someone is something is or acts are likely to cause substantial injury, the person doesn't even need to perceive damages. They have to possibly, or someone needs to be acting in a way where someone could possibly, maybe in the future, be damaged. And so, just for clarification purposes, is that clearly that was was intended with that language? I assume that someone, if a business is acting in a way, not even consumer-based, but if they're acting in a way that could possibly cause damages to someone, they're in violation of this new statute.
President, that has been the crux to what everybody has been worried about that has come to us. We believe that the Attorney General will, again, as I said earlier, not take cases on that are frivolous, not take cases on that are designed to just be upset with somebody or pick on a business. We believe that the Attorney General doesn't have time to waste, and her staff, to deal with frivolous cases. And they would only deal with things that are substantive, that can be clearly proven and demonstrated, and be able to take to a court where they would prevail in the court. This is language that's in many other states and in the language within the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and also the Federal Trade Commission. So we don't think that the Attorney General is going to turn around and be the tort lawyer for individuals.
Sponsor, you.
Did you continue to yield?
I do. Thank you.
And thank you, Senator. And I would agree with you that deceptive practices is all over the place. Substantial injury is as well. But now we're expanding it to likely causing substantial injury. And then we have the next clause, and I'm almost through the sentence. That's all I'm going to ask you about. But it's not reasonably avoidable and is not outweighed by countervailing benefits to consumers or to competition. So I don't really understand how if something is deceptive, according to this, or unfair, or dishonest, I can use that maybe globally, that if it's reasonably avoidable, there's no liability, or if it's the countervailing benefits of consumers or even competition outweigh that dishonest behavior, then they're not liable under the statute. So that's why I just would like some real clarification on that, because that's a lot to unpack, and I think it's actually counterintuitive when we read it all together. So if you could explain that, that would be terrific.
To you, Madam President, I'm going to try, because it is, as you say, counterintuitive. But the issue around that is that it's already standard in law, that it's already part of Section 63, I think. You're making me want to go back to law school, want to go to law school, Senator Flynn, just to make sure that I define this properly and be clear. But this is stemming from actions that the Attorney General had encountered when they were trying to sue SiriusXM, the radio channel that was doing deceptive and injurious practices to people, and they wanted to use this language to be able to deal with situations like that. The language is giving the Attorney General the opportunity to shape the case along a line to prove injurious injury. And something like a SiriusXM contract is something that is, you'll get the physical contract, but you're still having an injury to you because you can't operate the channel properly.
On the bill, please, Mr. President.
Senator Palumbo on the bill.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to be tricky, Senator Comrie. It's just the hour is late. I think we need to put this bill, this session, and some of my colleagues to bed. So I just want to ultimately highlight that specific. That's really my concern. Abusive, I think, is almost somewhat of a synonymous, and in some situations, or I think even with this language here, it's somewhat more clear than just generally deceptive practices. But that's for a finder of fact to determine. The unfair aspects of this new statute are unfair. It does not clearly define the conduct that could be deemed unfair. And that's really something that is likely to cause substantial injury but not reasonably avoidable, or is not outweighed by other countervailing benefits to consumers or to competition. Quite frankly, I think that will cause great confusion with a jury or a judge, and ultimately will lead to probably, I would say, miscarriages of justice in both directions, because it might be so confusing that they'll just throw it out and say, I don't get it. We already have a deceptive acts and practices statute. That is global. That encompasses all of these issues and concerns. Fraud, deceptive acts, that's already on the books. I certainly appreciate where you're going with this, Senator, but for those reasons, I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Palumbo. Senator Walczyk, why do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the sponsor yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
I'm thinking about Senator Walsh. Yes,
The sponsor yields.
I yield.
Thank you, and good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Page 2, line 11, I want to start off by talking about your legislative intent in this bill a little bit. The Attorney General, what you've written here, the Attorney General has a special responsibility to the public to create a fair marketplace for all, but not just for New Yorkers. You say your intent is in this bill, that responsibility extends to defending businesses. Is that correct?
You, Madam, do you, Mr. President, that is correct.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to
Will the
yield?
sponsor yield?
I yield.
Sponsor yields.
Is this true even if it's one business against another business?
To you, Mr. President, yes.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield.
I yield.
Sponsor yields.
How would the Attorney General decide which businesses' side to take if both believe that they've been unfairly treated?
To you, Mr. President, the Attorney General would probably do what any smart Attorney General would, which is to listen to both sides, take the evidence, and then make a decision.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to
Does the
yield?
sponsor yield?
I do.
The sponsor yields.
Where did that concept come from? Currently, the Attorney General, and often, we'll hear from constituents or situations where they'll make a complaint as a New Yorker. Where did the concept to add businesses into this statute come from, to allow them to go to the Attorney General's office to go after another business for unfair practices?
To you, Mr. President, it came from the fact that we have a lot of new immigrants that are starting small businesses that are getting ripped off on contracts, getting ripped off on supplies, getting ripped off on leases that they take out with folk. This is New York State. We are the home to over 180 languages, different immigrants from all over the world that are coming here to try to establish themselves and to live the American dream, and they are starting a business. They find out that they get the business and they're paying higher prices for pencils than anywhere else, or they're paying for their copying machine 3 times with somebody else, or they're taking an insurance plan that's higher than somebody else because that deceptive person knows that they don't know how to ask for things, or they haven't talked to people. I have a lot of businesses that, in fact, I went to a business the other day in my district that opened up, and they're already underwater before they started. We can go back to even, well, I won't go to the marijuana nonsense, but this is a business that showed up and is trying to start up. They came from another country. They've been living here for 20 years. They wanted to start their own business. So I talked to them. I found out that they already, it took them, and a lot of it was the city's fault too, but because it took the city 10 months to get their business up and running, and these people started a business, had been purchasing products, had to destroy products. But then they found out that they were paying for their ice cream cooler twice what anybody else was paying. They found out that their lease was a lease that wouldn't allow them flexibility. You know, they found out that they had to purchase products only from one person, which was not what they wanted to do. They wanted to have flexibility. So this tries to deal with folks that are going through those types of situations. We have a lot of new immigrants that are starting up and trying to do things, that are purchasing cars, that are purchasing homes, that are taking student loans, that are winding up getting in trouble.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to
The
yield?
sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
So in the example that you just gave, would you expect then the Attorney General to defend the ice cream prices that your small business is getting and go after the landlord for the lease agreement that they believe is unfair?
Do you, Mr. President? Yes. It's the pink suit.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
You mentioned immigration status. Is that stated anywhere in this legislation? Does this require immigration status to be considered?
To you, Mr. President, I only mentioned immigrants in immigration status in terms of new immigrants starting businesses in New York State, not anything to do with their immigration status or anything else.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
You also mentioned small businesses, and you do mention small business in this bill. How is small business defined?
I don't think. Not limited, to you, Mr. President, this is not limited. The small business size or is not defined. It's not limited to large, it's not limited to any size business. Any business that, whether you're the one employee or 1,000 employees that feel that you've been harmed, can go to the Attorney General to file an appeal.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
If a small business is on the defending end, though, and they lack the legal resources to defend against accusation of unfair practices, is there a legal fund for small businesses who the AG believes have been unfair in her eyes?
Mr. President, that's a good idea, Senator Walton. I don't believe there's one right now. But to do a relief fund for small businesses is something that we should, as a body, legislate.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield. Sponsor yields.
We've often said the power to tax is the power to destroy, which I think is true in this instance when you're talking about the power to take action against a small business that doesn't have those legal resources that you and I seem to agree on. Wouldn't that give the Attorney General broad powers to destroy a small business with all the resources of New York State? Clearly, if they can't pay for ice cream or their lease, if they're on the defending end of unfair practices as the AG sees, wouldn't that give the AG the power to destroy a small business?
To you, Mr. President, I don't agree with your premise that the Attorney General would be interested in destroying a business. I think the Attorney General is only interested in bringing relief to the injured party. So this is not about trying to destroy a business or ruin a business. This is about trying to create an opportunity to cure a problem.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
It is those broad powers that concerns me probably the most in this legislation. This extends new powers to the AG. What independent oversight will there be to review the Attorney General's use of these extended powers?
To you, Mr. President, the court system, as I said earlier, all of these cases would be resolved and finally decided by the courts. There's plenty of case law in a lot of these issues now. There's plenty of precedent for a lot of these problems. And again, I would state that the Attorney General does not have time for frivolous cases. They would have to show something substantial in order to win in court. And I don't think any Attorney General in this country, as I said before, would want to have a losing record bringing cases that would wind up not getting the approval of the judicial system. or something that they believe was injurious enough to bring a case, to demonstrate, and to not, I'm sorry, not to demonstrate, but to take a case to court that they know would be losing doesn't make sense to me. I don't think any attorney general in this country would want to waste time with that.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
I do.
Sponsor yields.
I understand it would be the court on a case-by-case basis, obviously. I'm more concerned about the broad, if there's a trend of industry or business that the Attorney General is particularly interested in pursuing, what independent oversight or review would there be for the Attorney General's overall strategy? Since this isn't complaint-based, this sort of gives the discretion for the AG to pursue cases as she sees fit.
To you, Mr. President, I disagree. This is complaint-based, and we're only doing this with folks that reach out to the Attorney General to complain. We're not encouraging Attorney Generals to go out and be lone wolves or detectives or to take time to try to find cases. This is complaint-based.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor
I
yield.
do.
Sponsor yields.
I didn't see the requirement of a complaint to be filed in this legislation. Where would I be able to find the requirement that it's complaint-based?
There's nothing in the statute that delineates that, Senator Walczyk, but it's standard practice throughout the 47 states that, and it's the Attorney General, after a person brings a complaint, deciding whether or not to file a case. But it's already standard practice for the Attorney General to file a complaint.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield.
I do.
The sponsor yields.
In your answers to my colleague from out east on Long Island, I heard you say that there doesn't have to actually be a harm yet before, so that would suggest that there's no complaint whatsoever and not a standard practice if there doesn't have to be a harm demonstrated before the Attorney General took action.
To you, Mr. President, I did not say that there has to be I did say there has to be a definitive harm, not a harm that is imagined. There has to be substantive, definitive harm that the Attorney General can point to. There has to be a product or a service or a promise that was made to a business that they signed a contract for, primarily, or an individual. I didn't say imagined harm. Sorry.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield.
I do.
Sponsor yields.
Thank you for clearing that up. The AG could bring action against any business inside or outside of New York State?
Yes. If that is sending product or services or making promises to consumers within New York State, they can be they can wind up under they can be sued by the Attorney General. Sorry, getting my words right.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield.
I do.
Sponsor yields.
And under this legislation, if the Attorney General determines it's not in the public interest, she doesn't have to give even notice, even the 5 days notice to the individual or the business or the nonprofit.
To give the 5-day notice. Mr. President, the AG already has the ability to, through its own discretion, not to give the 5-day notice if the complaint they feel is that grievous that they need to be able to work it without informing the business ahead of time.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield.
I do.
Sponsor yields.
You talked pretty consistently about protecting consumers. In Section 349 of the general business law, which you're amending, I'm looking at page 3, paragraph B, subparagraph 3. An act or practice may be unlawful by this section is actionable by the Attorney General regardless of whether or not that act or practice is consumer-oriented. What does that mean?
President, this is to cover business-to-business lawsuits and complaints. So this is primarily to give the language to allow the actionable issue to make sure that business can be able to file a claim against another business.
Sponsor, continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So just so that I'm understanding that correctly, if one business believes that it's being treated unfairly by another business, even if that business is inside or outside of New York State, a consumer wouldn't have to be damaged in order for the Attorney General to take action against the business that she sees as treating treating a business unfairly?
Mr. President, there still has to be injury to the consumer for them to bring a complaint, and there still has to be injury to the consumer for the Attorney General to want to file a complaint.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Yeah, that's where I had the concern in that whether or not that act or practice is consumer-oriented. So where would the consumer damage be if it doesn't have to be consumer-oriented?
Mr. President, that covers whether or not a small business can be able to file a damage against a larger business, or actually even vice versa, that a business can file their complaint. They can show what the damage is, so that the Attorney General can take it under advisement. Again, I'll go back to what I said before. The Attorney Generals are not going to file frivolous suits. They're going to want to see substantive proof. This has to go before a judge for a final resolution and determination. The Attorney General is not going to take anything that they can't prove, substantiate, and demonstrate to the courts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, on the bill.
Senator Walczyk on the bill.
Lawfare is bad. This bill will give broad powers and allow the Attorney General to pick winners and losers in business. I respectfully disagree with the sponsor that the AG won't waste any time with frivolous cases. Our Attorney General has already shown a healthy appetite to use her office to target people and businesses in order to score political points. Broadening the New York Attorney General's office powers to take action against any individual or business nationwide is likely to be abused, and so is the extension of this power to defend any business she sees as being treated unfairly. I have grave concerns about granting the Attorney General these new powers, and I'll be voting no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Walczyk. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 6 is action taking effect on the 60th day shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Giannaris Kruger, or Cousins White.
Senator Comrie to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank all the folks that have been involved in this for the past few years. I want to thank the Business Council, New York City Partnership, all of the advocates that came to us on both sides to express their concerns about the business climate. I know everybody's tired, so I'll just talk
Senator Comrie, hold on, I got it.
I'll just talk through the noise, Mr. President. I know
No,
everybody's
hold
tired.
on. Please have some order in the mornings, 3 o'clock in the morning. Come on. Senator Comrie.
So I won't be extensive. I just want to thank Assemblymember Lasher, and I want to thank the governor's office, but I especially want to thank our Senate staff here. They deserve a round of applause for all of the machinations that they had to go through to get the bill to this point today, understanding that this is a difficult area, but that we do need to protect our new consumers that are New York State residents that are being ripped off by unfair deceptive practices. This is a bill that will give an opportunity to protect those who are now developing in this state, who are trying to exceed in this state, but wind up getting suckered by deceptive business practices. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Comrie to be recorded in the affirmative. All vote explanations will be strictly enforced. Senator Rhodes to explain his vote.
Thank you for that warning, Mr. President. I appreciate it. I want to thank all of my colleagues for their questions. I want to thank you, Senator Comrie, for your answers. And I know this bill is well-intentioned. The issue is that the vagueness in this statute gives the most powerful Attorney General in the country the power to pursue any action against any person or business in the country based upon some undefined nexus to New York. And with all due respect to the sponsor, the language in the statute that this association, agent, employee, person has engaged or is about to engage in any of the acts or practices stated to be unlawful is a dangerous weapon in the hands of any Attorney General, because it means not that somebody has to have done something wrong, but in the sole discretion of one person that they could do something wrong, completely destroying the idea of there being standing, an actual definable harm that has occurred. So I will be voting no on this statute, not because it's not well-intentioned, but because it is providing a dangerous weapon in the hands of someone to be used against a person or a business who might not be able to have the resources to defend against the full power of the state of New York, and we should be judicious in how we allow that power to be wielded. Thank you.
Senator Rhodes to be recorded in the negative. Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2034, voted in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kanzeri, Fitzpatrick, Chan, Cooney, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Ralston, Steck, Tedisco, Walzett, Weber, and White. Ayes 37, nays 22.
Bills passed. Senator Gianaris.
Now let's move on to calendar 1985. Please.
Secretary, ring the bell. Secretary Reed.
Calendar number 1985, Senate Print 5939B by Senator Skoufis, enactment of the Public Health Law.
Senator Walznick, why do you rise?
I'm back, Mr. President. I was hoping the sponsor would yield.
Will the sponsor yield?
Happily.
Sponsor happily yield.
And through you, Mr. President, have you looked into whether this bill will increase costs for consumers and businesses through higher prescription drugs?
Through you, Mr. President, to answer your question, if I have looked into it, yes, I have looked into it.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yield.
Who exactly does this bill benefit?
Through you, Mr. President, I would argue that this bill benefits pharmacists and their patients.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Does the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
This bill was amended to eliminate unions, self-funded plans, large group, Employee Retirement Insurance Security Act plans. Why?
Through you, Mr. President, there's a distinction between the plans that you outlined and commercial plans, the balance that are covered by this bill. And I would argue that the collectively bargained plans and the self-insured plans, they are member-driven. These are plans that are organized and are run by unions and are responsive to their members, and any discounts, any savings that are collected from pharmacy benefit managers are passed directly along. That can't be said for the other commercial plans.
And through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Won't the cost of this ultimately be borne by whoever is enrolled in the plan?
Through you, Mr. President, I don't believe it's fair to assume that. if you take the commercial plans, if the pharmacy benefit managers, if this is passed and enacted, attempt to go to those plans and argue, well, we now have a professional dispensing fee to deal with, and we are going to increase costs to you, which would then increase costs to the consumers. There is nothing that prevents the health plans from telling the pharmacy benefit managers, the PBMs, to eat glass and no. So, there is nothing that requires the health plans to absorb these costs or to agree to pharmacy benefit managers increasing those costs.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Does the state already dictate specific reimbursement benchmarks for commercial plans, or is that limited to where state funding is involved?
Through you, Mr. President, they set those benchmarks that you're referencing on the Medicaid side. In fact, this is something that we addressed a couple of years ago that led to the NYRX program that many of us are familiar with. And in fact, this bill is modeled after those benchmarks on the Medicaid side. It's very unusual that you have providers who beg for the Medicaid rate. In this case, you have pharmacists begging for the Medicaid rate on the commercial side, and it's because you have PBMs and commercial insurers reimbursing, and these are typical pharmacy losses I'm about to share with you. A typical pharmacy loss for an asthma inhaler, they lose $150 per prescription. They lose $290 for the average weight loss drug. They lose $130 for filling the average prescription for blood thinners. There are not too many small businesses in New York that I'm aware of that can consistently lose on delivering a good or service like what I just described. That's why we're seeing so many pharmacies close, and that's why, tragically, you have these providers actually coming and begging to us just for the Medicaid rate.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So would the increase in the dispensing fee be reflected in the price paid by the small businesses employees that use their drug benefit?
President, I'm not sure I exactly follow, but I'll refer to the answer I provided before, which is that I don't believe that we should assume that there are any cost escalations for the consumer, because it can't, again, the health plans can reject any proposed increases by the PBMs.
Through you, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
I'm sure you've received a bunch of feedback on this, and I know you've amended the bill a number of times. Did you solicit feedback from the school administrators in New York State at all?
Through you, Mr. President, I'm thinking about all of these stakeholders we've reached out to. I don't believe they were on the list of stakeholders we reached out to.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill.
Senator Walczyk on the bill.
So this bill removes the incentive to use PBMs to negotiate effectively for lower drug costs in many instances. I know there were examples. That's why the school administrators oppose this bill. I'm afraid while trying to control drug prices, which is a laudable intent, this bill may have the unintended consequence of doing the opposite for many employees in New York State. I think some of them are carved out of this bill for specifically that reason, and ultimately passing those costs back on to the consumers and employees. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Walczyk. Are there any other senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 5, this act shall take effect January 1st, 2026.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Juniors Kruger, or Sue White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar, 1985 voted in the negative. Senator Walczyk. Ayes 58, nays 1.
Bills passed. Senator Janaris.
Let's move on to calendar 1990, please.
Secretary, ring the bell. Secretary Reed.
Calendar number 1990, Senate Print 6351B by Senator Dabo, an act to amend the general municipal law.
Senator Borrello, why do you rise?
I'm wondering if the sponsor is still awake and would answer a question.
The sponsor is most certainly awake. Joe Dabo does not sleep.
No, I don't want to.
Will the sponsor yield?
No. No. Sleep deprivation. No.
The sponsor reluctantly yields.
Yes, of course.
Through you, Mr. President, this bill was vetoed last year because it was in violation of the Seneca Compact. Does this B version have any changes to it?
Yes, through you, Mr. President, yes. It vetoed in 2018, actually, under Governor Cuomo. That's what we start with. And basically, from that, this B version addresses that veto message in two ways, certainly as it comes to the Seneca Compact. One, and I got to give a lot of credit to our team here, they worked amazing on this bill, in two ways. One, they limit the bell jar machines to geographic areas and to the amount of membership that an organization may have, and also to remove the gamification of these machines, where under the previous bill, these machines looked like a slot machine, which was a concern for many of those in the industry of gaming and VLTs and the Seneca tribes. But the bottom line is, at this point, all the gamingization is out of these machines, and now they're just a dispensing kind of machine.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So any likeness to a slot machine is prohibited under this new version of the bill?
Through you, Mr. President, yes.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
What is the payout to the state for these bell jar machines? What percentage?
Through you, Mr. President, although not stated in the language of the bill, 5% normally goes back to the state.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Well, the Senecas are paying out 25% under the compact, so this seems a little light as far as a payout to the state compared to what the Senecas are paying.
Question?
Don't you think?
That's the question, sir.
Yeah, that's the question.
Really?
Don't you think?
That's what you
There it
got.
is.
So
That's my
do you
question. Don't you
right?
think?
Yes, Mr. Sure. Understand that this is for charitable organizations. We're not looking to balance the budget here, solve a deficit. This is veterans groups. This is for charitable organizations. So the bottom line is the 5% to the state. This is not where we're making our money. This is for charitable organizations.
Mr. President, sponsor continue.
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So a slot machine is pretty broadly defined under the Seneca Compact. It's pretty much anything that's an electronic gaming device. Wouldn't these bell jars, because they're electronic dispensers, still fall under that definition?
Mr. President, no. Not this version. The previous version, yes. This is the B version, which this is basically everything taken out. All, again, does not look like a slot machine anymore. It's basically a dispenser of a ticket, basically.
Mr. President, on the bill.
Senator Borrello on the bill.
Thank you, Senator Adabo, for that. Representing the Seneca Nation, I've learned a lot of things, and one of the main things I've learned is that the state has really saturated the gaming market. And I understand that this is a small percentage of it. It's strictly for these clubs and not-for-profits organizations. But at the end of the day, we've really saturated the market when it comes to gaming in New York State, and it's hurt the Senecas. It's hurt, in general, the revenue that the state's supposed to be receiving. And while this is certainly not a big piece of that pie, it's death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to how gaming is being operated here in New York State. So I'm going to continue to be, or I will be a no on this bill. And thank you again, Senator Adabo.
Thank you, Senator Borrello. Are there any of the senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 10, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, GNRS Kruger, or Swilkens White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 1990, voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Kruger, Ort, and Skoufis. Ayes 55, nays 4.
The bill is passed. Senator Janaris.
Mr. President, the final debate of the morning, calendar 2030.
Final debate of the legislative season. Secretary, ring the bell. Secretary Reed.
Calendar number 2030, Senate Print 8432 by Senator Holman Siegel, and that to amend the limited liability company law.
Senator Weber, why do you rise?
Mr. President, Jimmy Buffett said it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but I don't think that applies to Albany. Will the sponsor yield for some questions, please?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
Good morning, Senator. Good morning. Last year, we did a chapter amendment, right, to align all of the federal guidelines, right, in New York State. Tell me why we're here today.
Tell me what? I'm sorry.
Tell me why we're here today.
Oh, about this
Yeah.
bill.
Yep.
That's a very existential question.
Exactly.
Through you, Mr. President, we're here to, I would suggest, Trump-proof a bill that we passed last year, which we called at the time the LLC Transparency Act. And as a result of a tweet from former First Buddy Elon Musk, who tweeted in March that in response to a question by an individual who is a comedian and entrepreneur who sells pancake mix and has 2.2 million followers, he was complaining about the federal Corporate Transparency Act and urged Musk to invalidate it, which Musk apparently convinced the president to do. And the reason why we are here is because our LLC Transparency Act piggybacked on the definition of limited liability companies and other components of that federal law in defining those terms in our state law. Since the federal law has now, in effect, been invalidated, we have to bring those definitions into state law.
Thank you. Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
And currently, under the CTA, what would a New York LLC need to file right now under FinCEN?
Sorry?
What would a New York LLC need to file right now under FinCEN?
What would they file under? Now, currently, an LLC would file as a beneficial owner with respect to any entity or individual who directly or indirectly, through any contract, arrangement, understanding, relationship, or otherwise, exercises substantial control over the entity or owns or controls 25% or more of the ownership interests of the entity.
Okay, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yield.
And under this bill, what would a small business need to report on January 1st, 2026 to the Department of State?
Business would, what's that? The scope of disclosure would require disclosure to the Department of State, including the full legal name of the individual who is the beneficial owner, the date of birth, current home or business street address, and unique identifying number form from an unexpired passport, an unexpired state driver's license, or an unexpired identification card, or document issued by a state or local government agency or tribal authority for the purpose of identification of that individual. The point being that this information was never reported to anyone, and LLCs, limited liability companies, Mr. President, were essentially shell entities without any understanding, public or otherwise, as to who was behind the shell. In fact, more information was required, we learned in drafting this bill, to get a New York City library card than it was to create a limited liability company.
And Mr. President, will sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So I'd like to explore a few things. So obviously, small businesses are struggling in New York State with a lot of regulation and a lot of burden put on them by this state. And there's thousands of small businesses in this state that are going to be subject. So you exclude businesses with more than, 20 full-time employees?
I'm so sorry.
You exclude small businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
With more than 20 full-time employees.
President, this would apply to any limited liability company.
Okay. Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield? Yes, sponsor yields.
So small businesses are going to have to pay a lot of money, and as you know, they don't make a tremendous amount of money, and this undue burden that you're putting onto them seems excessive, don't you think?
Mr. President, no, it's simply identifying information, and the point being that this isn't crucial for law enforcement. And remember that it was the first Trump administration that put the federal requirements in place for limited liability companies because of the concern around shell companies that have evaded taxes, been responsible for drug dealing, terror organizations, and people avoiding scrutiny of their tax liability. So we were encouraged to pursue this by law enforcement as much as any other entity or group.
Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
How many states are doing this right now?
Through you, Mr. President, I know that other states are looking at this. Obviously, the actions of the Trump administration have derailed efforts because of the fact that the federal definition has been, in effect, negated. But New York would be the first.
Excuse me?
New York is the first in terms of our LLC Transparency
Correct.
Act.
No, I appreciate that. And will the sponsor continue to yield,
Sponsor
Mr.
yield?
President?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
What's the penalty for not complying with this requirement?
Penalty are as follows. Section 80, let's see, section 1108, a reporting company shall be, the Attorney General may assess a fine of up to $500 for each day the company has been past due.
Mr. President, will the sponsor, sorry, continue. Will the sponsor continue to yield?
Senator Holman, will you
Yes.
finish the answer? All right. Will
So-
the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So if a small business, and you have a lot of small businesses that may have one or two or three owners, right? Or two or three employees, including owners. $500 a day seems like a pretty steep penalty for a small business who may, forget to file, not be in non-compliance, don't you think?
Through you, Mr. President. Well, I did state that the Attorney General may assess a fine, so it's at the discretion of the New York State Attorney General as to the extent of that fine.
And will the sponsor continue to yield, Mr.
Sponsor
President?
yield?
Yes, and
Sponsor
that is
yields.
up to $500 a day,
Right.
not
I'm not so sure
$500 a day.
I'm not so sure that small businesses would be comforted in that, in the word may, but let's move on for a second. Can you explain the role of the Attorney General with respect to the database that'll be set up?
Well, the Attorney General would investigate any violations of the attempt to knowingly provide or attempt to provide false or fraudulent beneficial ownership information, including false or fraudulent identifying photograph or document to the Department of State.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yield.
How much is the database going to cost?
President, $3.9 million, but that's mostly operational expenses. The estimate is about $400,000 annually.
Mr. President, sponsor continue to yield?
Sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
So do you think this is an appropriate use of taxpayers' dollars to create this database for New York-based businesses or businesses authorized to do business in the state?
Mr. President, yes, or we would not have drafted the bill as it is, but more importantly, there are many intersections with law enforcement that are important because, as I mentioned earlier, there's not only criminality behind the shell of an LLC, there's also wage theft. And numerous labor organizations came to me and the Assembly sponsor, Emily Gallagher, urging us to push this legislation forward because in many instances, employees on the job aren't getting paid and they have nowhere to go to seek their stolen wages. That's also true of tenants, many in New York City, who write a check on a monthly basis for their rent to an LLC. They don't even know who the LLC is, and if there's a violation in their housing conditions, they're kind of out of luck because no one up until now has any idea where to find the owner of that apartment because that information had not been kept anywhere in the state of New York.
The sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
If an LLC believes it meets one of the 20 exemptions, what do they need to do?
If they want to meet one of the 20?
If they believe they meet one of the 20 exceptions, what do they need to file or what do they need to do at that point?
Yeah. Well, as you say, there are a number of exceptions to being a reporting company, but it is a self-declared assessment, so they would need to do nothing.
And, Mr. President, would the sponsor continue to yield?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Sponsor yields.
You know what, I'll leave it there. On the bill.
Senator Weber on the bill.
Mr. President, we always talk about how we want to help and promote small businesses in New York State, but this is just another example of New York State targeting small businesses that are the lifeline and the engine of our economy in this state. We need to do better. We need to help promote them, put out the welcome mat to companies that want to come to New York State, that want to start in New York State, instead of putting up major barriers, major financial barriers for them. So I'll be voting no on this bill, and I encourage all my colleagues to vote no as well.
Thank you, Senator Weber. Are there any of the senators wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, debate is closed. Secretary, ring the bell. Read the last section.
Section 3, this action will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, so Cousins-White.
Announce the results.
In relation to calendar 2030, vote in the negative are Senators Ashby, Borrello, Kanzeri, Fitzpatrick, Chan, Gallivan, Griffo, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Patera, Oberacca, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rose, Robson, Steck, Tedisco, Walzak, Weber, and White. Ayes 38, nays 21.
Bill is passed. Senator Giannaris, that completes the reading of the controversial calendar.
I have a motion, Mr. President, on behalf of Senator Sanders. I wish to call up calendar number 389, Assembly Print 1515.
Secretary Reed.
Calendar number 389, Assembly number 1515 by Assemblymember Weprin, enactment of the banking law.
I move to reconsider the vote by which the Assembly bill was substituted for Senator Sanders' bill, Senate Print 3698, on June 11th.
Call the roll on reconsideration.
Addabbo, Giannaris Kruger, Ort, so Cousins-White. Ayes 59.
I now move that Assembly Bill number 1515 be recommitted to the Committee on Rules and that Senator Sanders' bill be restored to the order of third reading calendar.
So ordered.
I move to recommit the calendar to the Rules Committee.
So ordered.
Please recognize Minority Leader Ort.
Minority Leader Ort.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a speech prepared, but that was many hours ago. And now my thoughts are jumbled. It's 4 in the morning. I hope my counterpart, Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, like me, has a brief speech. It's been a long session. I've been here 11 years, and I feel like that's just today. I want to thank all of my members. It has been a long session. It was a 40-day late budget. It's been a long day today, a lot of bills. I appreciate all of your efforts, not on behalf of me, on behalf of yourselves, but on behalf of your constituents and the people you represent, and even the people you don't. People across New York who share our philosophy, our values, who look for a voice in opposition to a lot of the laws that are passed here. It is an honor to lead you. It is an honor to represent you. It is an honor to serve alongside you. To my colleagues across the way, it's an honor to serve with you and attempt to try and lead this state to a better place, even though clearly on a lot of issues we have different ideas of how to get there. I want to thank my colleague, my deputy, my floor leader, Senator Andrew Lanza, who does a great job. I certainly want to thank his counterpart, Senator Mike Giannaris, for his efforts. The staff, I want to thank my staff, Ben Kaczynski, our chief counsel, Chandler, Ryan, all the staff, especially this time of year with bills popping at all different times, and sometimes not a lot of time to dig into those bills and brief those bills, and yet they have to do it, and that's on both sides of the aisle. I always say, you know, the people in New York may know Rob Ort, they may know Andrea Stewart-Cousins, they may know the people who get elected, they may never know the staff, and yet the staff provides such an invaluable service to the people of this state, and they do so. Some of them, I'm sure, are great to have, glad to have the anonymity, but we want to make sure that your efforts remain not anonymous, that those are acknowledged. And so thank you very much to all the staff, but certainly our staff on the minority side. It's hard, after the budget, it's sort of easier to try to encapsulate the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the takeaways from a budget. The end of session is a little harder. Where do you start? Do you go January to today? Do you go just today? And thankfully for all of you, I'm not going to start in January, but I think we're just going to, for me, a couple things that I wanted to highlight, I guess, certainly when I think of this session, I think about the constant drumbeat about affordability, and I think the need and the recognition by everybody here that New York State remains one of the highest, least affordable states in the country. And everyone seems to acknowledge that. My colleagues in the Democratic Conference, certainly my colleagues in the Republican Conference, and you saw a variety of bills that attempted, or at least the narrative was that the attempt was to cap prices, to lower prices, to control prices, to lower costs. But yet, my overarching takeaway is that we did very little to lower costs, and I worry that we continue to do things and double down on policies that are one of the core reasons why New York State is one of the more expensive states. To wit, one of the big topics when we talk about affordability this session seemed to be energy policy, right? The cost to heat a home, the cost to put gas in a car. And the energy policy in this state is one that is undergoing a lot of changes as a result of policies passed by the majority. And I heard a debate, several debates, about how the reason costs are so high in New York is because we're not doing enough to transition to renewable energy. That was almost the exact quote. We're not doing enough. And if we do more, if we get past the upfront cost, we'll get to a spot where apparently, costs will go down. But I want to highlight a statistic. So when we talk about energy prices, a lot of my colleagues across the aisle will say the reason energy prices are so high in New York, and we did a lot of legislation in this session, was because of the greedy utility companies, right? And look, that's smart politics. No one likes the utility company. That they send you a bill, right? That's bad off the bat. Just like the banks. No one likes the bank, even though we keep our money there. No one likes the bank. Hospitals, no one likes. There's certain entities out there that are easy to attack, and it's good politics to attack it. That's the reality, and that's why almost everybody kind of does. So the utility companies, greedy utility companies, they are making money at the expense of ratepayers, and that's why our energy costs are so high, and that's why we have to do something about these greedy utility companies and control prices. Now, consider this. I suspect that in the state of Pennsylvania, a neighboring state to New York, very similar climate, I'm willing to bet that they also have greedy utility companies. They have the same motivation to make money as the utility companies here in New York. In fact, some of those utility companies are exactly the same utility companies. It's the same company that is providing power, and they have the same drive to make money. And yet, the cost of residential electric rates in the state of Pennsylvania are 40% lower than here in New York. 40% lower. So what could be the difference? If we agree that the utility companies are the same, what's the difference? The difference are the policies, and the people who run the state of Pennsylvania have a very different energy policy than the people who run the state of New York. We, folks, are the difference. We are driving the energy prices up with policies that come out of Albany, policies that are passed in this chamber. That's the difference. You don't have to like the energy companies. You don't have to like the utility companies. But we and our policies and our actions are making it more expensive to deliver power and for people to afford something as basic as heating your home. And that is why people and businesses seek opportunity elsewhere. Because the cost of energy, something none of us can escape, is cheaper in other states. We did a bill at the end here giving the most powerful Attorney General, and I don't mean the individual, I mean the office. The Office of Attorney General in New York is the most powerful state's Attorney General office in the country. And we gave that office more power. To what end, I'm not really sure. What I do know is it will send a chill to a lot of businesses and employers who might come here or who already do business here, that now they can be investigated and charged under a statute that is incredibly hard to define, very nebulous, very ambiguous. I thank my colleagues who asked those questions of the sponsor, who I think is very well intentioned, but I think misguided on that legislation. I won't touch on this on the spending plan. That's a different, we've gone over that, $10 billion more than last year. I'll close with, to me, one of the overarching themes this year was the corrections officers' strike, the deaths at Marcy, the officers who were charged, the prison system in New York. That's a big topic. And look, there'll be some people that they're going to be on one side no matter what. But the nuance of it is to me that we have a real issue in our prison system. And that issue, what happened at Marcy, the strike, we have to ask ourselves, have we addressed the root causes of what's going on in our prison system? I would say the answer is unequivocally no. I think, in fact, we have made it worse. We have made it more dangerous. We continue to, I believe, turn our backs on the folks that we ask to do a very difficult and dangerous job. If you are in prison today in the state of New York, you really worked very hard to get there. That's the truth. If you're in prison today in the state of New York, it is not for a small offense. And it is almost certainly not your first offense. We ask corrections officers to do a very, very dangerous job, and yet we continuously do not give them the resources to do it. We are far more focused on prisoners being close to their families than we are on corrections officers being able to see their families. We are very focused about the mental health of people who have committed crimes. We seemingly are less interested in the mental health of the people we ask to go into the prisons and, again, do that job. Today, we passed yesterday, an omnibus bill that once again is focused on those behind bars instead of those we ask to protect us and work in prisons. So the strike, did we respond by making the prison system better, safer for inmates and for corrections officers? No, we did not. We failed in that obligation. And the prison system will continue to deteriorate and continue to remain very dangerous for the folks who are in there incarcerated and the folks who work in the prison system. And there will be other incidents. There'll be incidents that will be covered on the news, and there'll be incidents that we never see. Because every day there's incidents there's attacks on corrections officers, there's attacks inmate on inmate attacks that we never talk about because it's not covered on the news, because there's no video of it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. That doesn't mean that it's not a symptom of a system that is rotting from the inside. The COs know it, we know it, but we've done nothing about it. I don't think we've addressed the core issues that are facing New York. We've done a lot of bills this week, a lot of bills this session, but I don't believe we have addressed the fundamental issues facing the people of New York. It's a missed opportunity, several missed opportunities, Mr. President, and I can only hope that next session, and I really do hope next session it starts in January. I hope we're not back here in the fall. I heard someone use the term Trump-proofing New York, which is, I won't say. There's a joke there that I'm tempted to do at 4 in the morning. I don't even know what that means. We have an elected president, elected by a majority of the American people. We have real issues facing the state of New York, and they do not begin and end with President Donald J. Trump. They are real issues facing real people every single day, and they're looking for us to do things about the price of groceries, the price of gas. They're looking to find jobs and opportunity and freedom here in the state of New York. They want to be able to raise their family here in the state of New York. They want their family to stay here once they've been raised in the state of New York. We've done nothing to make that more real, to make that more tangible. In fact, I think we've done many things to make that more problematic. So again, Mr. President, I know it's late, and the hour is late. I just want to thank my colleagues again for your efforts. It's an honor to be the leader of this conference. It's not always easy. It's not always easy being a New York State Senator. Sometimes it's really hard, but that's why it's so worth it. And there's people, millions of people, who are counting on us, all of us, to do this job and to do it well and to try to make their lives a little bit better. Not our lives, to make their lives a little bit better. I don't think we did that, but the great news is we will get more opportunities to do it in the future. So, Mr. President, thank you very much.
Senator Gianaris.
Mr. President, please recognize Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yes, the hour is late. And Senator Ort, I have a speech. But it's only 2 pages. You know what I mean? And I'm going to stick to the script. Because the hour is late. But, of course, so much of the script has to do with thank yous. And I'm amazed at how alert everyone still is, what with all of the debates and discussions. And, as I was listening and watching, I really had to think what an amazing body of people this is, because for every back and forth, it was respectful, it was dealing with the issues, questions answered with the kind of decorum that I believe should be in a chamber such as this. And so I always talk about the differences, and I will very briefly today, from what I see in Washington and here, and I've got to say, thank you to all of my colleagues for being here and for maintaining what I know is what our constituents would want us to maintain, a sense of purpose, a sense of dignity, and a sense of responsibility. So as I begin, I too want to say thank you. I want to thank my deputy leader. Thank you so much, Senator Gineris, for making these days go quickly. And of course, your counterpart, my classmate. Thank you so much, Senator Lanza. And Senator Orta, as always, it is a pleasure, getting to communicate with you and to, figure out the path forward. So good, thank you so much. I know I also want to thank my conference chair, Senator Serrano, and Senator Serrano, and my finance chair, the intrepid, amazing Senator Liz Krueger. So again, I thank you to my colleagues across the aisle, and I thank, of course, my amazing colleagues who I get a chance to partner with every single day. I just thank you for all that you do. I thank Governor Hochul and Speaker Hastie for our continued partnership. And of course, we all talk about staff, and so we should really give a round of applause to our staffs who do so much. And let me just give a special shout out to my senior staff. I've got where's Jonathan Lang, Dorothy Powell, new tag team. Dave Friedville, I call him Mr. Moneybags, but and Mike Murphy, Leah Goldman, to my team that makes my offices run the way they should, for all of you, led by Jonathan Alvarenga. And also, I want to thank the Secretary of the New York State Senate, Alejandra Paulino. Your incredible team, all of you, thank you so much. To my sergeants at arms who keep us safe and secure. I want to give a shout out to Ben, who is still recuperating, and let him know that our prayers are with him, and also let him know that he has trained an incredible group of people so that we all get to do the work that we need to do. Again, I want to thank my colleagues for your advocacy, for your tireless efforts, and for your belief in our shared mission and your drive to do meaningful work. As we close the 2025 session, we reflect on the year of steady leadership, decisive action in the face of national instability. We focused on making life more affordable and secure by investing in public education, healthcare, and housing, while preparing for the future challenges and even dealing with AI. We delivered relief for working families by lowering utility costs, expanding child tax credits, providing the lowest middle-class tax in over 70 years, guaranteeing universal school meals, protected tenants, supported homeowners, declared housing a human right. We strengthened consumer protections, small businesses, paid off their unemployment insurance. We strengthened labor rights amid rising costs and federal trade policies. On health care, we expanded coverage, defended reproductive rights, and made critical investments in public health. We honored veterans with tangible support, not just words. We advanced landmark housing initiatives, supported first-time home buyers, and helped keep neighborhoods stable and strong. We backed small businesses and MWBEs. We eased burdens on seniors. We assured economic support, and we ensured that it reached every corner of our state. We took on corrections with compassion and purpose, rejecting the failed status quo. We tackled the climate crisis directly by investing in clean energy, regulating pollutants, and pushing bold environmental policies. So as we adjourn, let's reflect not just on the bills that we've passed, but the lives that we impacted and continue to impact. We met fair with action, cynicism with courage, and we demonstrated, again, leadership with integrity and leadership with purpose. So everyone in this chamber, I again want to thank you for your tireless dedication, your fierce advocacy, your enduring belief that government can indeed be a force for good. In fact, that really is the only thing it should be. So I want you to get some rest, take good care of yourselves and your family, travel safely home. I know you'll continue your vital work in the district. And again, make sure you find moments to rest and recharge, because we continue to have an important task ahead of us. And for the fathers, have a happy Father's Day. Enjoy. I'm going to make sure you don't have to be there. As I said, trust the shaded boxes. We're out of here. We colored a little bit outside of the box. It's okay with that. But I also want to thank you, all of our presiding officers, too, who do so much to make it all happen. So have a wonderful summer. Have fun. Stay safe. Stay well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Gianaris.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at this desk.
I move to adjourn until the call of the temporary president, with the intervening days being legislative days.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until the call of the temporary president, with intervening days being legislative. We out.